All right.
Hang on. No. Wait.
Preparing
Oh,
for
okay.
live
This is your
streaming.
first time with us, right?
Yes.
Okay. So then, quick overview. We start with cold reads, then we have a discussion on the script, and then we go to directed reads. So we're live on YouTube. Actually, if you're in Zoom, can you exit out of Discord because I'm getting feedback from your side?
My side?
Yes.
I thought I was muted.
I can hear myself coming through your speakers.
Okay, I am going to X out of Discord then.
Okay.
How's that now?
Good. So the way that it's going to work is if you want to volunteer to go first, you can go ahead and read when I give you the prompt, and then you get to choose who goes after you. So we're going to create a reading order from that.
Maybe go through the Dan rules and all that.
We'll go through that when we get to it.
You go by
Yes.
single stage for our purposes, or do you prefer some other name?
You can call me Orbit, I guess.
Okay.
All this chaos. Are we playing Stranger of Paradise tonight?
No, we're back into the world of Warhammer.
Baby. All I'm seeing is chaos. I was like, I'm going to kill chaos.
Oh, this is a different type of chaos, my friend.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go ahead and start up, I guess. But for those of you who are watching us on YouTube, hello and welcome to the mic check. So today, yes, we're still killing chaos. Unfortunately, it's not the kind of chaos that Nathan wants to kill, more the kind of chaos that Mateo wants to kill. But anyway, today is another theatrical read. It's a character script. So we're not even going to take any longer. We've already taken long enough. So Orbit, go ahead. You are our first reader. So remember, read and then choose somebody to go after you.
What Grotex says, right?
That is the only text in the script, yes.
All right. He slew a chaos dragon, Storysmith. Have you ever done that? He followed me to the darkest places of the old world, all the way to the chaos wastes, and back, all in the strength of his word alone. 20 years we traveled the world before I released him from his oath so that he might go home and be wed. And even then, he managed to be there beside me at the very end. If there's a hero among the Stormcast Eternals worthy of even polishing the manling's mail, then I'll cut an inch off my beard. You, Storysmith, aren't yet worthy to speak his name. Not until you've notched your blade on a Chaos Lord or 10. All right. So,
Go ahead and choose anybody in the group here to go next.
Nathan, why don't you go next, since you're the next person I see?
Okay, and I think with how many people we're going to have here and potentially who is going to come in after the... Did we just lose Nathan?
All right,
We just
Leonard,
lost Nathan.
you can go-
Yep, I think we did. Because
Wow.
I saw his camera go off and now it's...
Yeah, you got switched
Yeah.
to the host.
Oh my.
Okay, all right.
Stage
So-
just Thanos snapped him. So
Yeah, apparently. But all right, so yeah, Leonard, you're gonna go ahead and go next. Let's go ahead and skip the red lines because we've got a lot of people and potentially more coming in. So we got to keep
Should
the
I
time
skip
short.
the red lines? Sorry.
For the next set of reads when we actually get back into it, yes. But for now, what you did was fine. But yeah, everybody from here on out, we're going to go ahead and skip the red lines just to save time.
Okay.
Okay. He slew a chaos dragon, Storysmith. Have you ever done that? He followed me to the darkest places of the old world, all the way to the chaos waste and back, all on the strength of his word alone. 20 years we traveled the world before I released him from his oath so that he might go home and be wed. And even then, he managed to be there beside me at the very end. You, Storysmith, aren't yet worthy to speak his name. Rob.
He slew a chaos dragon, Storysmith. Have you ever done that? He followed me to the darkest places of the old world, all the way to the chaos wastes and back, all on the strength of his word alone. 20 years we traveled the world before I released him from his oath so that he might go home and be wed. And even then, he managed to be there beside me at the very end. If there's a hero amongst the Stormcast Eternals worthy of even polishing a manling's mail, then I'll cut an inch off my beard. You, Storysmith, aren't yet worthy to speak his name. Not until you've notched your blade on a Chaos Lord or 10. Michael.
Just as a reminder, we are skipping the red lines.
What do you... I heard you say something about red lines, but I didn't understand. I should have asked.
Okay, so just so you can take care of it on your end, because I know you need to copy the text off. It's if there's a hero amongst the Stormcast Eternal or Eternals, I'll cut an inch off my beard. That is going to be removed, and everything after you, Storysmith, aren't yet worthy to speak his name.
Okay.
He slew a Chaos Dragon, Storysmith. Have you ever done that? He followed me to the darkest places of the old world, all the way to the Chaos Wastes and back, all on the strength of his word alone. 20 years he traveled the world before I released him from his oath so that he might go home and be wed. And even then, he managed to be there beside me at the very end. You, Storysmith, aren't yet worthy to speak his name. Since I know you're itching for this, Matteo.
I like the Scottish, by the way. Nice touch. He slew a Chaos Dragon, Storysmith. Have you ever done that? He followed me to the darkest places of the old world, all the way to the Chaos Waste and back, all on the strength of his word alone. 20 years we traveled the world before I released him from his oath so that he might go home and be wed. And even then, he managed to be there beside me at the very end. You, Storysmith, aren't yet worthy to speak his name. And now that he's back, Nathan.
A little technical issue. I'm not exactly sure what it was, but it was a hiccup. Anyway, we didn't go off YouTube the whole time. He slew a Chaos Dragon, Storysmith. Have you ever done that? He followed me to the darkest places of the old world, all the way to the Chaos Waste, and back, all on the strength of his word alone. 20 years we traveled the world before I released him from his oath so that he might go home and be wed. And even then, he managed to be there beside me at the very end. You, Storysmith, aren't yet worthy to speak his name. Okay, who hasn't, since I was trying to deal with my technical issue? All right,
It's actually
Marcus.
a shorter list for who has. Oh, okay.
There you go. Marcus, take it away.
Glad you asked.
Welcome back, man. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. All right. He slew a Chaos Dragon, Storysmith. Have you ever done that? He followed me to the darkest places of the old world, all the way to the Chaos Waste and back, all on the strength of his word alone. 20 years we traveled the world before I released him from his oath so that he might go home and be wed. And even then, he managed to be there beside me at the very end. You, Storysmith, aren't yet worthy to speak his name.
And you get to choose who goes after you.
Right. Has Leonard gone?
Leonard has.
Okay.
So
Justin?
Justin is not.
Okay. He slew a Chaos Dragon, Storysmith. Have you ever done that? He followed me to the darkest places of the old world, all the way to the chaos wastes and back, all on the strength of his word alone. 20 years we traveled the world before I released him from his oath so that he might go home and be wed. And even then, he managed to be there beside me at the very end. You, Storysmith, aren't yet worthy to speak his name. Okay, let's go with Brett.
Sweet. Can you all hear me? Cool. Okay, my camera's not working today. I was trying to figure it out. Not gonna happen. All right. He slew a chaos dragon, Storysmith. Have you ever done that? He followed me to the darkest places of the old world, all the way to the chaos wastes and back, all on the strength of his word alone. 20 years we traveled the world before I released him from his oath, so that he might go home and be wed. And even then, he managed to be there besides me at the very end. You, Storysmith, aren't yet worthy to speak his name. And let's see. I'm going to say Emily. Have they gone yet?
I have not.
Cool.
Go ahead and pull the script up. Okay. Can y'all hear me? Do I have my mic off?
Yes.
No, if you
yes,
could, sorry,
we can
sorry,
hear
we
you.
were we're giving you a thumbs up. Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I have pulled the the Google Doc pulled up, so I can't see y'all.
Oh, got it. Yeah. Well, you're good to go whenever you're ready.
Okay. He slew a chaos dragon, Storysmith. Have you ever done that? He followed me to the darkest places of the old world, all the way to the chaos wastes and back, all on the strength of his word alone. 20 years we traveled the world before I released him from his oath so that he might go home and be wed. And even then, he managed to be there beside me at the very end. You, Storysmith, aren't yet worthy to speak his name. Let's see, who hasn't gone yet?
We have Russ, Samuel, Barry, and Sebastian. Sebastian,
Barry.
are you gonna read with us today? Just to check.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, just so we know that we have you, but we're gonna go ahead and Barry was chosen to go next.
Okay. Hello, guys. He slew a chaos dragon, Storysmith. Have you ever done that? He followed me to the darkest places of the old world, all the way to the chaos wastes, and back, all on the strength of his word alone. 20 years we traveled the world before I released him from his oath, so he might go home and be wed. And even then, he managed to be there beside me at the very end. You, Storysmith, are not yet worthy to speak his name. Okay. And I think you said Russ was a available person?
Russ
Yep.
is available.
Can you hear me okay?
Let's do that.
Absolutely. Go
Cool,
for it,
thank you.
Russ.
He slew a chaos dragon, Storysmith. Have you ever done that? He followed me to the darkest places of the old world, all the way to the chaos wastes and back, all on the strength of his word alone. 20 years we traveled the world before I released him from his oath so that he might go home and be wed. And even then, he managed to be there beside me at the very end. You, Storysmith, aren't yet worthy to speak his name. Sebastian.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay. He slew a chaos dragon, Storysmith. Have you ever done that? He followed me to the darkest places of the old world, all the way to the chaos wastes and back, all on the strength of his word alone. 20 years we traveled the world before I released him from his oath so that he might go home and be wed. And even then, he managed to be there beside me at the very end. You, Storysmith, aren't yet worthy to speak his name.
Okay, and by process of elimination, Samuel, you are up.
Can you hear me all right?
Absolutely. Go for it.
Making sure. All right. He slew a Chaos Dragon, Storysmith. Have you ever done that? He followed me to the darkest places of the old world, all the way to the Chaos Waste and back, all on the strength of his word alone. 20 years we traveled the world before I released him from his oath so that he might go home and be wed. And even then, he managed to be beside me at the very end. You, Storysmith, aren't yet worthy to speak his name.
Okay, and I believe that is everyone, right? Right. Okay. So let's go ahead and talk about this. So, first things first, voiceover or voice under? It's always the first question.
Over.
Over.
Over, for sure. This is voiceover. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with those terms, that's not general, like you're not going to be able to go out there in the world and say that to somebody and they'll understand exactly what you mean. That's mic check shorthand.
Lingo.
Yeah, it's mic check shorthand to mean it's sort of to give you mic technique, which means you need to be upfront. For voiceover, you are the center of attention. So you need to be up front on the microphone, close to it. The entire focus is 100% on you specifically. So you need to be the front and center character. So that is voiceover. This is clearly a theatrical piece, and we're clearly trying to be, or trying to give a clear emotional delivery. So let's talk about those emotions. So what can you gather just from what you read or what you actually paid attention to throughout the script about this character Gotrek?
It kind of sounds like, from what I can see, that he's angry. Maybe someone had insulted the one who died, and he's trying to like get this other person to understand that they did something wrong.
Okay.
Mike, is it considered cheating if I already know everything?
Very much so.
Mateo, it is considered cheating.
Okay, I'll shut my fucking mouth then.
Just put him on mute, Mike. Put him on mute.
I mean, if you guys need context, I'm here.
I would say that the character is speaking in a tone of basically tremendous reverence, like intense reverence of this other character.
Ooh, that's a good one.
I honestly feel like it's a little bit of both. That Gotrek heavily reveres this person, and how dare you, Storysmith, reduce him to just a human?
It's definitely interesting.
Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead, Barry.
Well, I was just going to say, yeah, you can tell there's this intense sense of loyalty. And then just also in general, when I was hearing people's reads, there was either this very earnest read or a very kind of sardonic, biting read that I was kind of hearing throughout people. So I find it interesting seeing which approach might be better.
Well, what we're trying to do here is we're trying to find a clear emotional goal so that we can sort of rest the characters or your decision about the characters around that goal. And something that really sticks out to me is if you actually read at the very beginning of the directions, that very first paragraph, it says that, in this universe, humans are considered so low by dwarves that the word for human is a derivative of the word for shoddy work, for, not very capable, not very useful or whatnot. But the way that Gotrek actually speaks of Felix here is with reverence and with awe. Like, it is truly an elevation of this lowly creature that he initially, or he, she, they initially assumed that that Felix was, I'm assuming.
He's defending him.
Yes, absolutely. He's defending him, but I don't think anger is really the way to go here. I don't know if anger is really the right thing.
I think anger can be spread a little through there.
I don't disagree with that. I think you could probably, sprinkle in a little bit of anger here and there, but I don't think the entire thing should be anger.
Right,
This is really a lot of that sense of reverence.
It's like passionate, right? Yeah,
yes, it's passionate.
Yeah.
It's reverent. It is. What was Orbit? What? How did you? I can't believe
Intense what I said was intense reverence.
Yeah, intense reverence. So it's something like that. That's more of the of the tone that you should be taking, because again, you're speaking with somebody who Gotrek is referring to as a story smith. So clearly, this person is well versed in telling stories, in sharing these worlds with people. But
he could be like a journalist almost.
Yeah, but, something like that.
In his attitude, picture John Rhys Davies Gimli. Especially when he was talking about his people, the dwarves.
That's a good one. That is a good one.
Though to me, when he says you, Storysmith, aren't yet worthy to speak his name, that denotes some degree of being pissed off to me.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You can kind of sprinkle it in, but I don't think that the entire thing should be angry.
Mm-hmm. It should be intense.
Yes, it should be passionate. Absolutely, it should be passionate. So let's think about where we can actually sprinkle in that sort of reverence or passion. I think we need to really highlight a lot of the main story points in order to really give it that passion. So if we break it apart, what are some of the main feats that Gotrek is talking about when it comes to this other character, when it comes to Felix?
Doing things on the strength of his word alone.
Mm-hmm. Marcus said slew a chaos dragon. That's one. Strength on his word alone. Mm-hmm. That's a big one. I'm kind of reminded of the Lord of the Rings here in where it says he followed me to the darkest places of the old world, all the way to the chaos wastes and back. I mean, Bilbo's book was called There and Back Again in the actual Lord of the Rings story. So there's kind of a minor allusion maybe to that.
Being with him till the end.
Mm-hmm.
Even though he had been released from his oath at that point. So yeah, there's definitely loyalty there.
100%. I think all of these main feats and accomplishments that Gotrek is really pointing out is 100% for the listener to get a sense of who this person is. Yeah, and unfortunately, I think we're still going to go ahead and keep the red removed from the script. But is there anything else? Is there anything else that you'd like to bring up, or that you noticed about this script, or about this character?
I think that pretty well covers it.
Okay, so character-wise,
I could give. I think Mateo cared to confirm. My knowledge of Warhammer is a bit thin. About the Chaos Dragon. Yeah, no, that's the old version of the Chaos Dragon. But about Gotrek, I mean, it depends if you guys want me to give my deep insider knowledge on the thing or not. Depends. Like if we want to give a more freedom of read, or if you guys just want to follow the official material, I guess.
Well, we're treating this like an audition. So we want we don't want you to spoil like exactly everything about this character, but maybe if we're on the right track.
Okay. The only thing that I would generally disagree with is that this wouldn't be that angry because Gotrek is a berserker. He's a rageaholic. And it's an extremely grim and kind of depressed person because he's basically been banished by his clan and he is basically now doomed to suffer a terrible death. And that's why he's a berserker. And take him as Guts from Berserker, basically. This should help many of the weeaboos out there. So yes, Marcus, I'm looking at you. Yeah, so maybe anger. I would definitely use anger. Maybe not completely all over percent anger because maybe that would be too much of an overshoot. And on the strength of his word alone is very important because Felix in the books is generally a coward, and he's the entire thing with Gotrek is that he's basically a bard and he's going to spread the word and of the jests of Gotrek, the demon slayer. So he basically follows him wherever he goes in his tasks to basically die. And the storysmith is basically a skjal, so a storyteller. So yeah, that's accurate. And overall, there could be, I could go on and say whatever for hours.
Now that we actually had the character itself ruined for us, let's go ahead and start talking about specific ways that we can actually bring that out.
Is it ruined or is it correct way?
Well, again, as an audition, we're not always going to have that much information.
Yeah.
I mean, it's always a good thing to look up the characters, and I'm sure we could probably find story synopses and things like that online to give us that sort of insight. So, I mean, I'm not going to disqualify it, sure, but let's go ahead and actually talk about like creating this character and communicating this character itself. So, this character is a dwarf. That much we can get from the directions themselves. Now, the only exposure to Warhammer dwarves I've ever gotten was from Vermintide 2, the video game. But when it comes to like dwarves in this universe, I'm assuming that they do have like their own unique accent, and I'm assuming that we're going to go ahead and play that up a little bit, if possible, if you feel comfortable with doing that. Because I think more so than anything else, we just need to get the characters' emotional space right. We need to get the mindset correct first, and then we can build everything else up around them.
Yeah. Agreed.
So if you feel comfortable, you can go ahead and use an accent with it. If not, don't worry about it. Warhammer is not a show. It's actually it's kind of like it's a multiple game universe sort of thing.
It's an IP.
Yeah, it's an IP in general. So then let's talk about where we could probably show some of that anger. Because apparently Gotrek is a berserker and there's going to be some anger there. So where can we go ahead and let on that this character has some anger issues? Where do you see that really popping up?
Maybe have you ever done that?
Yeah, that could be like a little threat.
And also when he says, you, Storysmith, aren't yet worthy to speak his name.
Agreed.
Yeah.
No,
I agree with that too.
I think that is the pop-off.
Those are the two. I think that would be the most justifiable. I could also see, if you're explaining the going all the way to the chaos, you're still kind of fresh from after delivering that line, so maybe there's still a little bit venom there. Then maybe you switch over to kind of passion or like reminiscent, sort of like, oh, these are the good old days.
So that's where you sort of bring up the the reverence, the care and concern about Felix's legacy?
Yeah.
Okay. Marcus, people were kind of talking over you a little bit. What did you have to
It's
say?
all right. It's all right. No, I feel like, at least on that last line, that Storysmith almost needs to be spat. Like, I'm calling you a Storysmith, but I mean that as a slur.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, it's the way the line reads, it very much is giving me, you who have never even raised a weapon aren't even fit to speak his name.
Yeah, and unfortunately, there is some context that is lost due to us having to cut the script down for time. So I mean, we can still use the context that would be in that red text specifically to bring out some of that same emotion. So the red text is: if there's a hero amongst the Stormcast Eternals worthy of even polishing the Manling's mail, then I'll cut an inch off my beard. So he's talking about, the Stormcast Eternals, from what I understand, are kind of these mythical warriors in the Warhammer universe. Just to really shorten it, I know that there's a lot of them. Let's not dive into the lore right now. Just getting context. I'm cutting it off right at the very beginning here.
I was looking at people just for Chaos Dragon. What do you want from me?
Well, I mean, again, you did ruin the entire story for us, but let's get back into this. And again, that's our fault. We checked with you. You gave us everything. That's fine. So,
way more.
Yes,
There's way more where that came from.
But we're just talking about this for right now. So, in that, clearly, there's a lot of talking down to this Storysmith right now. And so, yes, a little bit of spitting that out. You Storysmith aren't yet worthy to speak his name is definitely true. And I like the fact that you mentioned about you who haven't even raised a weapon, because the red text right after that says, until you've notched your blade on a Chaos Lord or 10. So yeah, that is actually there in the script itself. So this is going to be somebody who is racked with emotion right now. When you lose someone, and when that memory is brought back, when you lose somebody who's close to you and that memory is brought back, it's always a flood of emotions that come back. It's multiple things. It's anger. It's reverence. It's sadness. It's all kinds of things.
Maybe even a dash of grief.
Maybe even a dash of grief. If not, maybe more than just a little dash.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, the dwarves are putting him down and they don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think we've got a good idea of who this character is in their mind, and the kind of mindset that you should have when approaching this character. Does anybody have any additional questions, comments, anything about this script before we get back into it? Anything at all?
No. Oh, I do have one question. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep. I can hear you.
I swapped into my other part of my studio, and I had my Yeti hooked up where I was doing some other things. So, well, congratulations, my Yeti's visiting the mic check for the first time in 10 years.
Welcome back, Nathan's Yeti.
I used it at the beginning of the mic check back in 2012, and here I am in an emergency using it again. So, anyway. So I'm able to be heard?
Yes.
All right, let's move on then.
Okay. So, no other questions, comments, anything like that before we get into it? Okay.
I also
Daniel
thought
posted
that,
something in the chat.
yeah. Sam posted in the chat.
Yeah, can the very first sentence be spoken kind of like shock disbelief? Yeah, you could do that. Yeah, I think that's totally a characterization choice. Sam asks, can the very first sentence be spoken kind of in shock/disbelief? Like, are you like, you're really talking down to him? Have you ever done something that worthy? Yeah, absolutely. That's entirely your choice. But again, what we really want to focus on for this particular read is your character's mindset. Are you communicating that slew of emotions that you're going to feel and that you usually face when it comes to the loss of somebody that you really forged a strong bond with? That's the mindset. That's the delivery we really want to get, and that's the direction that we really want to push you into. But Mateo, what did you want to say?
It was just a very easy choice that I came in mind and I forgot to talk about. To maybe put a little rage in 20 years, just to underline the span of time.
A little rage or a little emphasis?
Emphasis.
Emphasis.
Intensity of some sort.
Yeah, some kind of underlying to that phrase. I agree. All right, well, let's go ahead and get back into it, starting with Orbit. Whenever you're ready, give us a read.
He slew a chaos dragon, Storysmith. Have you ever done that? He followed me to the darkest places of the old world, all the way to the chaos wastes and back, all on the strength of his word alone. 20 years we traveled the world before I released him from his oath so that he might go home and be wed. And even then, he managed to be there beside me at the very end. You, Storysmith, aren't yet worthy to speak his name.
Okay, opening it up. What everybody think?
Kind of felt just a smidge too angry in some spots where it could have had more of the reverence, I think.
True, but he is a berserker, so...
But that doesn't matter. He's talking about somebody he's lost.
Right.
And even somebody who's... Go ahead.
Sorry. A berserker wouldn't even be that angry when he's dealing with a loss. I mean, yeah, he's got a lot of going on, but at the same time, there's another part of that emotional range that pops in when you're feeling loss or empathy for someone.
I'd like to hear a little more range to the emotions. And it was like the exact same feeling all the way through. And it wasn't a bad place to be. It was a good place to be, but show us more range there in the emotions. And also the delivery felt really punchy.
Yeah.
So find a way to get your emotional intensity across through other means than just punching everything.
Was that a sorry?
Ooh.
I didn't hear it. Was
I
that
heard
a sorry?
it. I think I did hear it.
God damn.
All right, got to bring it up now.
That too.
Got to bring it up now. So during the directed portion of the mic check, there are two rules that you cannot break when it comes to
the Coolio Rulio.
Yeah, we have dubbed them the Coolio Rulios, but these rules you cannot break, and we'll give you a pass this time, even though there's no actual consequence to it. We'll have to come up with one. But you get called out. But the rules are the Dan rule and the Nephilim rule. These are named after people who used to attend with us. The Dan rule states you cannot criticize your own performance right after you have read. So during these directed portions, you need to be solely and 100% focused on just your performance. You leave all of the direction to the rest of us. The second rule, the Nephilim rule, is you cannot apologize for your performance either before, during, or after. Whenever you get a piece of direction, it is not a personal attack, and it is not a poke for guilt, I suppose. It is a suggestion to improve and should be taken as such. It is always a positive thing.
Yes, we are all here to improve.
So no sorry, no commenting. Let's keep going. So yes, I do agree that your read was too regular. It was too paced. It was too it was too perfectly evenly paced. You need to break that up a little bit. You need to let certain things sit. Your character needs to come up with these ideas and feel these emotions and let them flow through your performance. So whenever you're ready, give us another take.
He slew a chaos dragon, Storysmith. Have you ever done that? He followed me to the darkest places of the old world, all the way to the chaos wastes and back, all on the strength of his word alone. 20 years we traveled the world before I released him from his oath so that he might go home and be wed. And even then he managed to be there beside me at the very end. You, Storysmith, aren't yet worthy to speak his name.
Okay, opening it up. What did you all think?
It still feels like he's punching it, like here's a line, punch, here's a line, punch. Try maybe making it a little more fluid at the spots where you feel like he's supposed to be having reverence, and kind of break it up a little bit, but don't punch it, if that makes sense. Give it more of a flow to it. Let it rise and fall on its own.
Yeah, what she said is making sense. Is just a little bit too less flow, and you're talking to somebody. Okay, these words are your words, not just something on a page. So yeah, keep that in mind when you're giving your delivery.
So picture the Storysmith in front of me.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Make the scene. Create the entire scene around yourself. You are in there. You are a dwarf at this point. Okay. You know, you've got those nice grizzled, gnarled hands and the big, thick beard, and you're ready to go fight orcs if it takes anything to get them out of your village. That sort of, it just, be a dwarf.
I did hear more of an emotional journey this time, and it was less punchy. So good job on taking directions.
Thank you.
You did throw in a lot more pauses, though, this time, to the point where it really broke up the read, and it felt a little unnatural there. I'd like a smoother flow as well. And a tip on that, try to read it without taking breaths, except where there are periods. That's not necessarily for every script. I just think it's a piece of advice that might help you with this particular script. So, which means conserve your breath, which automatically gives you a smoother flow.
I did notice, so Michael had said previously that you had this sort of uniformness throughout your read. And while you did change it, you then changed it and made it uniform again to that new read. You slowed things down. Again, you added the pauses, which I think on their own are good tools, but to make sure you don't over-centralize your read around them.
All right. Well, whenever you're ready, give us one more read.
All right. He slew a chaos dragon, Storysmith. Have you ever done that? He followed me to the darkest places of the old world, all the way to the chaos wastes and back, all on the strength of his word alone. 20 years we traveled the world before I released him from his oath, so that he might go home and be wed. And even then he managed to be there beside me at the very end. You, Storysmith, aren't yet worthy to speak his name.
Okay, opening it up. What did you all think?
Loved the emotional variance. Gonna say that right off the bat.
Name.
Thank you.
Yeah, that came off a lot better.
So were you seeing yourself talking to another person this time?
I was.
Okay, that did make
You're
a
done
difference.
with-
It's extremely important when doing any kind of character work to not only answer the questions about yourself, about who am I, why am I saying what I'm saying, why am I doing what I'm doing, but also to answer the questions of where am I, who am I talking to, you know, who is my audience, because this kind of thing is going to sound very different if you are in a somber hallway and you're speaking with one person versus if you are in a small group of people riding horses across a plain.
Yes.
You know, those are going to be very different settings for this particular audition. Of course, it would be in the direction, stuff like that, but it is imperative. It is just as important to know what is happening around you as it is to know who you are in a scene.
Mhm.
So the fact that you gave yourself somebody to speak to, really, really important, definitely changed up the read.
Yeah. I'm going to quote Richard Horvitz on this. You're getting paid to play pretend and play it fully. So you be everything that scene describes you as. You know, if you're a bird, be the bird. If you're a dwarf, be the dwarf. If you're a giant, be the giant. You know, make yourself bigger if you have to. And, you know, yeah, I mean, I don't know if you watched Lord of the Rings, but picture Gimli when you do that. Picture yourself as Gimli, you know, and do your best John Rhys Davies personality impression. Don't try to sound like him if you can't, but personality wise, see how he pulled that
Match it.
off.
Yes,
and match
it's
that personality.
yeah. The whatever you add to your voice or whatever you do to your voice is secondary to answering the questions of who am I and what's happening around me.
All right.
Secondary. That should never be the main focus of any kind of delivery.
Right.
But yeah, you definitely varied it up. You had a really good emotional space, and I think that's good. I think we can go ahead and move along.
All right.
All right, Leonard, you are up. Go for it.
Okay. He slew a chaos dragon, Story Smith. Have you ever done that? He followed me to the darkest places of the old world, all the way to the chaos waste and back, all on the strength of his word alone. 20 years we traveled the world before I released him from his oath so that he might go home and be wed. And even then, he managed to be there beside me at the very end. You, Storysmith, aren't yet worthy to speak his name.
So, Leonard, I have a question for you. When you say beside me at the very end, what is that referencing?
The final boss battle where this guy died.
Yeah. Okay. Because I feel that you could have given that more reverence. You had that that sort of upplay of emotion throughout the beginning of it, and you know, you definitely had the vitriol or some of the anger where, you know, I think it really did make sense. Maybe a little too much of that throughout the middle. I think your character's a bit too worked up for the kind of reverence that you should be having for this scene. But the very end should bring back to your character's mind the images of Felix dying in front of you. You should see that and feel that. At least the reverence for that. So I'm going to say, slow down. You moved a bit too quick.
I also
Anybody
think,
else? Yeah, go ahead, Barry.
So you weren't being punchy, but the way that the lines are delivered, I think you would need to soften your tone in order to achieve that sense of reverence. And so I think because you have this sort of similar to it might as well have been punchier because you didn't have a contrast as a result. So I think there's something you can do there, maybe perhaps softening your tone, because there was always this very this and that and that and that and that and that and that and like you can kind of figure out not to get stuck in that sort of tonality. But yeah, otherwise I think you're getting there. I think you've like got 50 to 75% of the way there.
I think with that one of the beginning lines with the have you ever that it almost bordered more on snarky than it did angry and almost threatening. It had to me at least just a little bit too much sass.
Okay.
All right. Whenever you're ready, give us another take.
Okay. He slew a chaos dragon, Storysmith. Have you ever done that? He followed me to the darkest places of the old world, all the way to the chaos wastes and back, all on the strength of his word alone. 20 years we traveled the world before I released him from his oath so that he might go home and be wed. And even then, he managed to be there beside me at the very end. You, Storysmith, aren't yet worthy to speak his name.
Okay, opening it up. What did you all think?
I feel like the end needs at least a little bit more spice.
I second that.
Like it's giving I can hear there's hurt there, but like I said, and maybe it's my interpretation of it, but that last line is screaming, "You're not even worthy to polish his boots."
Yep.
That's all I've got. You definitely picked it up and modified the delivery speed and made it a lot less casual sounding compared to the other one. So, yay.
Yeah, I agree. I think just the very end, that last sentence, I think you can give yourself a little bit more space between the very end and then to you, Storysmith, aren't yet worthy to speak his name. And really, really lay on the fact that you truly don't believe this guy to be worthy to even approach his story.
Okay.
Anybody else? Take that as a big fat no. Whenever you're ready, go for it.
Okay. I think I'll give you 3 of the last line.
Okay.
So we'll see how that goes. He slew a chaos dragon, Storysmith. Have you ever done that? He followed me to the darkest places of the old world, all the way to the chaos wastes and back, all on the strength of his word alone. 20 years we traveled the world before I released him from his oath so that he might go home and be wed. And even then, he managed to be there beside me at the very end. You, Storysmith, aren't yet worthy to speak his name. You, Storysmith, aren't yet worthy to speak his name. You, Storysmith, aren't yet worthy to speak his name.
I personally like
the last line.
Yeah, I personally like C better. C was the take for sure.
Okay.
Mateo, do you concur?
It was fine.
Resident expert on how it's supposed to sound.
It was fine.
Well, I'll take that.
All in all, it was a much more emotionally rounded performance. That's for sure. And I think that's mostly what we were going for here.
Thank you.
So, moving right along, Rob, you are up.
Wasn't sure if that was Mateo or Elmo, but He slew a chaos dragon, Storysmith. Have you ever done that? He followed me to the darkest places of the old world, all the way to the chaos wastes and back, all on the strength of his word alone. 20 years we traveled the world before I released him from his oath so that he might go home and be wed. And even then, he managed to be there beside me at the very end. You, Story Smith, aren't yet worthy to speak his name.
All right. What did you all think?
I wasn't really getting dwarf from that. My mind was going to like the Thalmor elves in Skyrim.
Yeah, that's what I was catching too.
Wow, that's quite
This
a
is,
fucking
this is
insult.
all over my head because I'm not a gamer, and I don't watch didn't watch Lord of the Rings really.
Okay.
Okay. So
Okay. To help with a reference, look up a picture of Gimli.
Okay.
well, also in the chat, a couple pictures of this character have been posted.
Just look up the picture I put there of Gotrek and Felix.
Okay. Let's see.
I think I still have the link. There you go.
Mm,
While we're waiting on that, are you fully comfortable in that dialect you chose?
I'm sorry?
The accent that you used for the character, are you completely comfortable in like using that and emoting in that?
And I think I could improve.
Okay. For the sake of experimentation, try delivering it in your natural dialect. So that
Okay.
way you're not trying to juggle both making sure that the dialect sounds as accurate as possible, but also trying to emote, but it becomes a lot to keep up with.
Yeah.
If you're not completely comfortable in speaking like that.
Yeah, first thing is the acting, second thing is the voice. So it's fine.
Yeah, just focus on your performance.
Yeah, I don't
Like-
see any pictures though in the chat.
Hang on. Here, I'll read.
Oh, you can only post links in the chat. We can't actually post pictures in the chat.
Okay, I'll Google it though.
Okay. Google up Gotrek and Felix.
Okay, so
Felix and
it's-
Gotrek.
Well, Gotrek is the
Nutty
star of
guy.
the star of the show here. So
Okay. So
Yeah.
novel series.
I always find that so fascinating because sometimes I think you have
I
to.
have heard of Warhammer. I just, I suck as a gamer, so
stop.
No,
Stop.
that rule
That's
applies to
teetering.
gamers too, my friend.
To gamers too.
That's teetering on the edge of the
like
Nephilim.
even on for God of War, I could be using cheats and still.
Oh,
Okay, but
Did you enjoy yourself playing it though?
Yeah, if you're having fun, that's all that matters.
no. I was
Okay,
like,
well done.
This is way over my level.
Barry, what were you going to say?
Oh, I was just going to say that I think at the same time I've caught myself like holding myself back from ever trying accents as a result because I just feel like, well, I never get a chance to really practice it because I tell myself, well, I can't do it yet. I need to like work on the
Practice it.
performance.
Just
And
go
then-
for it.
Yeah, just
Yeah,
practice
exactly.
it.
But now I feel like everyone else is kind of telling him, and then now he's going to be in his own head.
Well,
and be
so
like,
here's
well,
the
now
thing.
I can't do an accent.
So no.
And on top of that, it's like we went to that sort of British, sort of vaguely British thing, and it's like, yeah, that sounds more high elfish or whatever, right? And it's like, oh, it sucks because it could be like, oh, that might be in your wheelhouse. It's like if
Well,
you can't
so-
do the like Gerard
Yeah.
Butler sort of like.
So here's the
thing about-
exercise. Here's the real thing. What you want to do is you want to make sure that you have your performance down first. That's why usually your very first approach should be just your emotional space, just your emotional delivery. Then you can start adding in the accent and practicing emoting in that accent. The thing that we don't want is for you to do your very, very first take to be both the accent, which you're focusing a lot on, and trying to be emotive at the same time, which takes a lot of focus, and then splitting your mind far too much. I mean, I'm not saying, I'm not telling people, and I want this to be clear. I mentioned it already. If you feel comfortable doing an accent, do an accent. And even if it doesn't necessarily work out at the beginning, what we're going to do is ask you not to use it, get the emoting down right, and then use it again so that you have that muscle memory of the emoting down properly. So that's the, to clarify, that's the whole process. Is you want to make sure that, again, your emotional decisions in the moment while acting the scene make sense. Then you can layer on all of the flavor that makes a character a character.
Sure. But the other thing that I'm also, part of me is wondering, is if it's sort of like the voice not being, that at that sort of range is just naturally kind of painting people the wrong picture. It's like,
well, here's the
so-
thing about that. Here's the thing about that is you can be a lot of different kinds of characters and not have that quote exact voice. I mean, it's a tricky thing, and to some people, it's like I was told, "Oh, you're not really a voice actor. Your voice isn't deep enough." I've done the voice
Jesus
of
fuck.
God.
Mhm.
Okay.
Have you
So
ever watched
Now
so
that I want to hear someday.
Have you ever heard
when you
Shag-
assume that off of my
Okay.
natural voice, which sounds like a 30-year-old, which I'm not, I'm 52, I'm like 20 years older. But anyway, the thing of it is it is possible. There's training involved. And again, it starts with that base level of performance, the personality.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, ultimately, you as the performer are not the final arbiter of what's right for the part or not. You don't make that decision. You just do your audition, and it is the casting director or it is the project manager that makes that final decision. You just submit. If it's not right, you're not going to hear anything back, and you've lost maybe, I don't know, a half hour to an hour of time just, reading everything over, doing the audition, doing some edits, and sending it out. So you yourself don't actually know what it is that ultimately the person's going to hire, because, you and I, or like Rob and I, could audition for the same exact part, and I happen to sound like the casting director's ex, and they just don't want to have anything to do with that day. It could genuinely be that simple.
Not hire you because you have gray hair.
Yeah, or Rob could be the only person with his voice print, with his voice style, that does the audition, and that sticks out so much in their head that they're like, you know what, this can actually really, really work.
We'll use it.
So ultimately, we don't have that call, and we shouldn't make that call.
No.
If we have an audition and if we have the opportunity, just do it. The worst you've done is lost some time. In which case, you're going to be doing 100 auditions before you land something anyway, and that's a conservative estimate. So just throw another one out. Just find the next one. That's the way that it kind of boils down.
Just have fun. Have as much fun as possible.
So
You're
Rob,
getting to play a role, whether they hire you or not, you're getting the role.
yeah. So Rob, let's go ahead and get back to your performance. Yeah, just for now, get rid of the accent. Let's focus on just the emotional space for your character. Whenever you're ready, go for it.
He slew a chaos dragon, Story Smith. Have you ever done that? He followed me to the darkest places of the old world, all the way to the chaos waste and back, all on the strength of his word alone. 20 years we traveled the world before I released him from his oath, so that he might go home and be wed. And even then, he managed to be there beside me at the very end. You, Story Smith, aren't yet worthy to speak his name.
Okay, what did everybody think of that one?
It felt just a little bit like he was just reading facts off a textbook rather than bringing to life his personal experience.
So one thing that I'm a big believer of is if you start correctly, you will end correctly. One thing that I think kind of pulled you out of the delivery that we were going for is the "Have you ever done that?" question, because you put more emphasis on ever. Have you ever done that? when he's specifically calling out the Storysmith. This is a threat. Have you ever done that? So I think let's just make that slight change there, and see what it does to your read. So make sure to emphasize you in that question.
Okay.
I'd also slow it down just a tad.
Okay, go for it. Let's hear that, and then we'll see if it makes a big difference in the rest of your read.
He slew a chaos dragon, Storysmith. Have you ever done that? He followed me to the darkest places of the Old West, all the way to the Chaos Wastes and back, all on the strength of his word alone. 20 years we traveled the world before I released him from the oath so that he might go home and be wed. And even then, he managed to be there beside me at the very end. You, Storysmith, aren't yet worthy to speak his name.
Okay, I feel that helped out a little bit. What did you all think?
I feel like the line with the "have you ever done that" still has just too much of the wrong vibe. I know that questions usually end on an up note, so you'll very rarely hear me say this. Can you try ending it on a down note? Just give it more of that threatening feel to it, and maybe slow it down just a little. It feels like you're glossing over it, like a "have you ever done that?" Give it more of that presence to it.
Okay.
Anybody else? Okay, let's give that a try and see if it affects everything else.
I was going to say, I was going to say, building off "have you ever done that," you kind of went too fast into the next line. That's what I wanted to say. I just didn't unmute myself.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree. And when you say something like, have you ever done that?
You're
waiting a moment and observing what the other person's reaction is before you go on to the next line.
Okay.
All right, carry on.
Okay. He slew a chaos dragon, Storysmith. Have you ever done that? He followed me to the darkest places of the old world, all the way to the Chaos Wastes and back, all on the strength of his word alone. 20 years we traveled the world before I released him from his oath so that he might go home and be wed. And even then, he managed to be there beside me at the very end. You, Storysmith, aren't yet worthy to speak his name.
Okay, opening it up. How was that?
That it's starting to feel like you're getting more comfortable with the lines, and I'm starting to hear more emoting in the lines. It's still missing a certain.
You need
Oh, wait, my
to kind
camera's
of
off.
play with your mic proximity a little bit. I mean, you're talking to someone, and when you get into like, you, Storysmith, just lean into it, just a shade. I mean, don't just like, clobber the microphone, but lean into it. Change your proximity. You're making an emphasis on something, so it's like, you, Storysmith.
Yeah, it's the gravitas that it's missing.
Yeah.
Hello, Andrew.
Hello. What's up, guys?
It's got a bit of punchiness to it, but I do think this was clearly your best read so far. So we're definitely heading in the right direction.
Okay.
All right. One last one. You can go ahead and try the accent if you want to, but I still want you to lean in more to the emotional part of this. And then we'll move on from there. So whenever you're ready, go for it.
He slew a chaos dragon, Storysmith. Have you ever done that? He followed me to the darkest places of the old world, all the way to the Chaos Place and back, all on the strength of his word alone. 20 years we traveled the world before I released him from his oath so that he might go home and be wed. And even then, he managed to be there beside me at the very end. You, Story Smith, aren't yet worthy to speak his name.
So even though I'm of the opinion that I don't necessarily think that accent would fit, you were much more expressive emotionally with it this time around. And that was a much better overall performance. I'm going to go ahead and open it up. Let everybody else let you know what they thought, and then we'll move on.
Still had a bit of a jerky, punchy feeling, but the emotion expression was definitely there.
Yeah, I'd agree. I thought that was definitely probably the best one so far. I think the one bit that kind of sticks out to me is the even then feels like it's like way too high up there for me. I feel like the emphasis should be even then. That's when he did it. To really kind of get that sort of importance and investment into the story. Like, this is some guy who went to hell and back, and this dude is just straight up dissing him. You're not standing for that. So I think to just continue working with it, but I think definitely was the best one overall.
Okay. Yeah. Sounds good. Thanks for the info.
Well, again, you're constructing the scene, and that's the most important part. So let's go ahead and move it right along then, shall we? Now it's my turn.
Now it's your turn.
He slew a chaos dragon, Story Smith. Have you ever done that? He followed me to the darkest places of the old world, all the way to the chaos wastes and back, all on the strength of his word alone. 20 years we traveled the world before I released him from his oath so that he might go home and be wed. And even then, he managed to be there beside me at the very end. You, Story Smith, aren't yet worthy to speak his name.
Opening it up.
I feel like it starts up here and then kind of goes down and then just kind of pops a little bit at the end.
Okay.
Like, I don't know, maybe
I kind of disagree. I feel like that was a good natural progression to it.
Go ahead, Marcus.
I was just gonna say it was
Yes.
When I say it started up here, it was like a metric ton of rage and energy at the beginning. And there's nary an exclamation point until all on the strength of his word alone. So at least by my interpretation, that needs to be some kind of ramping, so that way that exclamation point has somewhere to exist in the script and not just be like a period with an extra little bit on it.
Oh, but remember, Marcus, not always, and I think I liked how Michael did this, because not always does an exclamation point mean that you have to shout. It can be emphasis too, in a way. So you can be quiet with an exclamation point when you're putting emotion into it.
For me, it was overplaying the drama a little too much. And that feels kind of odd to say with this kind of a berserker.
Yeah.
But,
Right.
but it still felt to me like it was overplaying the drama instead of just being naturally a really intense guy.
Okay.
The one thing I was wondering was, from my perspective, the only time, and it was really good at that point, but the only time I heard reverence was on the, and even that, I felt like it was like you poured every like concentration of it all in that one line of the, and even then he managed to be there beside me at the very end. And I wonder if that kind of maybe leads to what Marcus was kind of saying of like, there was this sort of like peak, and then you suddenly change up, and it's like really good at that point. But I wonder if there's some sort of way you can even it out.
Okay.
I'm
Okay.
curious if
I think I know. I think I know what you're trying to get to. I have an idea that I'd like to try. That I think might fit some of that direction. Does anybody else have anything? Okay. Well, let me see if this other approach might help. He slew a chaos dragon, Story Smith. Have you ever done that? He followed me to the darkest places of the old world, all the way to the chaos wastes and back, all on the strength of his word alone. 20 years we traveled the world before I released him from his oath so that he might go home and be wed. And even then, he managed to be there beside me at the very end. You, Story Smith, aren't yet worthy to speak his name. Okay, opening it up. How was that?
Well, I think you make a fine dwarf.
Wow.
I
Yeah,
agree with
I like how-
Samuel. Everyone, it had. Oh, I got chills.
Yeah.
That's all I can say.
I like the way you said Story Smith in like very, very much a contemptuous tone. Like you sounded out the syllables like you, Story Smith, aren't yet worthy to speak his name.
Like I said, I'm calling you a Story Smith, and I mean that as a slur right now.
That was the direction I was trying to embody with that.
Mhm.
That was the direction I was
Yeah.
trying to go for.
And you succeeded.
And when you said the line where it was you might I released him from his oath so that he wouldn't be wed. I felt the emotional weight behind that you saying, so that he could and yet he didn't. I'm assuming he didn't, Mateo, no spoilers though. It had that emotional weight with it.
Yeah, it really did.
Yeah, this read definitely came across more as the really intense guy. It didn't feel over dramatized to me. So good job on that. My only little nitpick there was you can really make that manage to be there, not that one, but so that he might go home and be wed. You can make that a really human moment. Throw a bit of almost tenderness in there.
Yeah. I think that's what I was trying to get at. If adding softness to your voice doesn't work, then that's definitely what I'm.
It is a stretch when you're doing a character like that, because I had to do a henchman character, and I was using my Peter Lorre, and I had a large chunky paragraph of lines for this character showing empathy and compassion for his boss. And it's not something you normally would think of hearing out of a Peter Lorre type character. And so it's like staying in character, of course, staying with this the whole time, and I'm being compassionate for my boss because she's been hurt really bad by the superhero, and I'm like trying to, it's one of those stretches. I mean, it can be done. It takes some mental gymnastics, but it's possible to get that kind of emotion out of that character. But it starts with the baseline of your attitude.
That's interesting. It might be to the point of like, because I think any character can feel those sort of emotions and that sort of thing. So it might just be a matter of, poor writing or like a limited perspective of that character. So it's like,
well, it's up to you, the actor, to make it happen.
Right.
With
So
your
then
attitude and how you put the personality into it.
So then getting back to this, should I give that another try? Maybe see if I can make that section a little bit more personable, or Are we good? Should we move on? Because we do have a time constraint, and we are very a lot farther in than I thought.
I
Well-
like that read for the most part.
Well, it would be nice to hear you again, because it's always nice to hear you again. I think we can move on.
Okay. Well, we'll hang out afterwards on the Discord, and we can do more reads.
I just add one direction that I forgot to give generally at the start, because it's just something that I assumed in my head, and then I realized, oh, actually nobody knows this. The Storysmith is another dwarf. And in the directions we have that normally the dwarves speak like lowly about humans in general. So imagine the fact that Gotrek, a dwarf, is defending another human against another dwarf that is also a Storysmith, which is not like the biggest title in like a kingdom or whatever, but it's still like a political title. So you guys could imagine like an entire room full of people going, "Oh, like is actually going there." That maybe could help bringing out a little bit more, maybe the stupor of the situation.
Okay. Well, Matteo, thank you for saving that till just before your read. Why don't you go ahead and include that?
I just was like, wait, Storysmith.
Yeah.
No, nobody knows this.
You realize Mateo's got a lot of weight on his shoulders because he knows the lore.
Well, yeah.
And since
Oh,
he
yeah,
knows the
yeah.
lore,
Yeah.
it means that his performance is really got to tap into that lore. Big time.
I am on full
All right.
blast here now.
Whenever you're ready, Matteo, go for it.
Yeah. He slew a chaos dragon, Storysmith. Have you ever done that? He followed me to the darkest places of the old world, all the way to the chaos waste and back, and all on the strength of his word alone. 20 years we traveled the world before I released him from his oath so that he might go home and be wed. And even then, he managed to be there beside me at the very end. You, Storysmith, aren't yet worthy to speak his name.
All right, opening it up. What did you all think?
It felt like your pacing was a little fast for somebody having a conversation like this. It
All
kind of
right.
pulled back from the gravitas a little bit.
The last sentence should also be like more articulate, in my opinion. Like it seemed like it was slurred together a little bit. It should be like, aren't yet worthy to speak his name.
Okay.
It felt kind of a little samey.
Mm-hmm. Elaborate.
So like you started out with the he slew a chaos dragon, how it was kind of on that lower level, and it didn't feel like it rose to much of anything else besides anger.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with Emily here. It felt like you were in the exact same emotional space throughout the whole read, and was a good emotional space, but I want more of a journey.
Need to vary. Okay.
So yeah, again, try the ramping read. Start a little bit lower, a little bit more personally threatened, and build up if you can imagine yourself speaking in front of a room of people.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Whenever you're ready, go for it.
He slew a chaos dragon, Storysmith. Have you ever done that? He followed me to the darkest places of this world, all the way to the chaos waste and back, all on the strength of his word alone. 20 years we traveled the world before I released him from his oath so that he might go home and be wed. And even then, he managed to be there beside me at the very end. You, Storysmith, aren't yet worthy to speak his name.
Okay, before we get too far, Justin has let us know he might have to leave a little bit early. Marcus and Nathan, is it okay if he goes next? Are you guys okay with that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So we'll just modify the order. Now, getting back to it, what did y'all think of Mateo's read?
I liked it, except for where I screwed up Mateo, because I think he overthought oath. And then there was like a little pause there. Everything else was okay. So I screwed you up. My bad. Sorry, Mateo. I can say, sorry.
Yeah, it's fine.
I have a bit of a nitpick about spacing. Because in both reads, because I try to hold off until the second read before I say anything, because I want to see if the habit sticks. You said all on the strength of his word alone. And I feel like the strength of his word alone should all, or at least of his word alone, needs to be all one package, if only because the whole thing behind it feels like he came with me all that way just because he said he would.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Like you could almost it feels like the strength of his word alone, it needs to be all bumped together.
Mm-hmm.
Or well, yeah, because I mean we're not
And all compassing thought, yeah. String it together.
Yeah.
Okay.
I definitely heard more of a journey, more variance this time. So good job on that, especially on the managed to be there at the very end. My one nitpick, and well, don't know if you'd read too much into it, but every time you say world, it comes out as word. You swallow the L,
yeah.
It's not there. So I don't know if that's an accent thing or whatever, but at least be aware of it. You might want to practice that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely an accent thing. The world is very hard for non-native English speakers. My Brazilian family says it's like you're talking with an egg in your mouth. So if that helps.
Yeah.
But for what it's worth, I did notice that too. So in case that's something you want to practice.
So my only thing is if you do find yourself like feeling uncomfortable with a word, it's okay to stop and do a pickup. Don't just force yourself through it.
Okay. Okay.
But go ahead, give us one more read, and then we'll move along.
Roger. He slew a chaos dragon, Storysmith. Have you ever done that? He followed me to the darkest places of this world, all the way to the chaos waste and back, all on the strength of his word alone. 20 years we traveled the world before I released him from his oath so that he might go home and be wed. And even then, he managed to be there beside me at the very end. You, Storysmith, aren't yet worthy to speak his name.
Okay, opening it up. What did you all think of that one?
I loved it. At the very end, it had a sense of to it. Just it punched in the gut, and that second feeling of sadness along with it.
Yeah, this one
very much. Bravo.
Yeah, this one felt a lot more emotionally expressive.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you, guys. Let's move along.
Yes, moving right along. Justin,
we have a time crunch, guys.
You are up.
He slew a chaos dragon, Storysmith. Have you ever done that? He followed me to the darkest places of the old world, all the way to the chaos wastes and back, all on the strength of his word alone. 20 years we traveled the world before I released him from his oath so that he might go home and be wed. And even then, he managed to be there beside me at the very end. You, Story Smith, aren't yet worthy to speak his name.
All right, opening it up. What did you all think of that one?
Ooh, I like that little spice on
Yeah.
worthy.
Yeah.
That was nice.
Yeah, punching
Definitely
that.
very
Like
nice at the end.
I pictured that finger in the guy's face. Not yet worthy.
Yeah, I like that. I think the beginning definitely suffered a bit. I think it was something similar with Rob, or it was have you ever done that? Kind of pulled the energy. I didn't feel like the first part of it feels like it's really something contemptuous, just like you're pathetic. Have you even fucking done this before? And I didn't quite feel that. It felt almost as if you were sad versus like angry and defying and in defense of this guy. It was more like you were sad and crying throughout, almost like you missed him, which could be a different read, but I didn't quite feel like it fit this one. And the end really kind of turned it around, and I wasn't quite expecting that. I liked it, but it didn't quite fit the rest of the read. So that energy throughout would be great.
Yeah, the first couple of lines did not give me Berserker Dwarf at all. But you got there at the end, and through the whole thing, I definitely had an emotional journey. So that part was good. So I would say just like always use the lead in of the last line and then jump to the beginning.
That's a choice I deliberately made to be sad and to mourn for him, especially since he's acting uncharacteristic in this speech. So that's what I was going for. But I can.
Okay. Yeah, and you made the choice. That's fine. The directors don't seem to like it, so to take a different route next time.
Okay. All right. So next, whenever I'm ready.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. Okay. He slew a chaos dragon, Story Smith. Have you ever done that? He followed me to the darkest places of the old world, all the way to the chaos wastes and back, all on the strength of his word alone. 20 years we traveled the world before I released him from his oath so that he might go home and be wed. And even then, he managed to be there beside me at the very end. You, Story Smith, aren't yet worthy to speak his name.
I personally preferred that emotional state throughout the entire thing to the previous one. What did you all think?
It's still missing the first line thing.
Yeah, the
I think
question's
with-
still off. Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's definitely a better emotional space, Michael. I think I would agree with that. I think there was a few key places where emphasis seemed a bit off, maybe by a word or two. For example, the question I think is, emphasizing you. Have you done that? It's more of a derogatory, arrogance, or just like putting him down. Like, who the hell are you? I think when we emphasize that, it kind of brings the whole question up, which I don't know. I think kind of puts it in a different space. I have some other places, but I don't want to get too nitpicky and technical. But I thought there were just a couple different places where I thought the emphasis could have been in different places. But overall, a better space, I think, for this read.
My one suggestion for a next read would be go big. Use your gestures, use your body language.
Yes, gesticulate. They'll allow you to do that on YouTube. But yeah, don't be afraid to. But don't do what I just did and accidentally boop your mic.
Don't do that.
Yeah.
Down. No, don't bump the mic.
Move around, but be nice to your microphone.
Okay.
One more read.
Your microphone is your friend.
So I wasn't condescending enough for the second line.
So what we're looking for is we want more emphasis on you.
And I didn't
Have you ever done that?
And I didn't do that on this.
No. Have you ever done that? Is what you
Yeah,
said.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
want to hear that.
point when you say
Dwarven
you. Yeah, point. Or if you have like something that can resemble a weapon, like, point the axe at the person. The storysmith.
Oh, okay. Oh yeah, I love the bear grudges. So yeah, I feel you there, Matteo. Okay. He slew a chaos dragon, Storysmith. Have you ever done that? He followed me to the darkest places of the old world, all the way to the chaos waste and back, all on the strength of his word alone. 20 years we've traveled the world before I released him from his oath so that he might go home and be wed. Even then, he managed to be there beside me at the very end. You, Storysmith, aren't yet worthy to speak his name.
Okay. The go home to be wed, I think was done a little too forcefully. I think it should be, more again grandiose. So go home and be wed. Because again, who does that in the middle of an adventure? But you did that. You let him do that. And yet even after that, even after being married, he still came back. So I think that right there was a little too angry. It could have been a little bit more, can you believe that? Should have more of that feel to it. But all in all, this was a much more solid read and had a much more emotional variance to it. And you definitely hit the emotional spaces that I feel that this character would really be going through during this whole thing. So much, much improved read here. What did you all think?
Yeah, very much improved.
Yeah, I agree also.
And I asked you to go
The
big,
rage is
and
right
you
where it
did.
is.
I know.
I agree.
It was like when I was lip syncing along with you, I had to use big emotion, big movements, because that's what your voice was giving me. So good job.
Oh,
Fantastic.
Much. Thank you.
All right, moving right along. Marcus, you are up.
I am. All right. Okay. He slew a chaos dragon, Storysmith. Have you ever done that? He followed me to the darkest places of the old world, all the way to the chaos waste and back, all on the strength of his word alone. 20 years we traveled the world before I released him from his oath so that he might go home and be wed. And even then, he managed to be there beside me at the very end. You, Storysmith, aren't yet worthy to speak his name.
So I realized I actually messed up and I rearranged you guys. It was supposed to be Nathan next, but we'll just have him go afterwards.
That is fine
Anyway.
because that was fantastic, Marcus.
Well, let's open it up. Let's open it up.
And
What
you
did everybody
gave
else
me
think?
some hints and ideas as to what to do. That is-
What did you all think?
When he said 20 years we traveled the world, like he kind of said we traveled the world too fast. Like 20 years we traveled the world should be how it's said, I think.
Give it a little more room to breathe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll agree to that.
Yeah, I think it was
Feel
that one
like-
sentence that was pretty fast. It was like travel the world into the darkest depths, and that felt very fast and run on.
I feel like there could have been just a little bit more of after the followed me a bit, more of creating the mental image of where they went leading up to the strength of his word alone, if that makes sense.
It like put a teeny bit more punch to the chaos waste because holy hell, that's a long walk.
Yeah. Give it more of the feeling of, hey, this happened.
Okay.
I thought that was a really good delivery. It was quieter than most other people, and it kind of worked. But I'm a little curious what it would sound like if you had this speech take place in a big hall, as opposed to, not quite a library, but but anyway, well, you get what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm. See how it play with it and see how it works delivered to a bigger room. Sorry,
Yes.
my initial sentence track for that sounded way dirtier.
Well, go ahead. Whenever you're ready, give us another read.
All right. He slew a chaos dragon, Story Smith. Have you ever done that? He followed me to the darkest places of the old world, all the way to the chaos waste and back, all on the strength of his word alone. 20 years we traveled the world before I released him from his oath so that he might go home and be wed. And even then he managed to be there beside me at the very end. You, Story Smith, aren't yet worthy to speak his name.
Ooh, I heard the emotion in that.
I was gonna say,
letting
the
the voice
emotion
crack
in
works
even
really
that.
well in there, because it's just like it's like, okay, dwarves, man, they are manly men. They are 100% testosterone, and they don't like to show tears. But this dwarf is like, I'm trying to hold that. God, this is hurting.
Yeah. So I'm going to be one of the main dissenting voices here. When you hit, and even then you started breaking into almost this like on the verge of tears kind of sound. I think this is where like the real reverence for his actions needs to come in. And even then, even after being wed, he managed to be there beside me at the very end. You are really trying to bring home the point to this Story Smith that he, even though he's a fellow dwarf, is not nearly on the same level of honor and duty.
I agree. I agree with Michael. I don't think the trembling voice and everything was a bad thing. I just think it was a different read.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, it was different. It worked for me. I was happy with it. And it had, on both reads, you took me on a real journey, and I could hear that it was a bigger room this time, and I got nothing. I think that was a great read.
Fantastic.
I really like the all on the strength of his word alone. That picked really nice. Maybe I would have slowed it down like a tiny bit, but other than that, I think it was pretty solid.
Well, just for fun, I want to hear you give it one more take where at the very end, and even then he managed to be there beside me at the very end. Bring up the reverence and the awe for that action. Like that action in and of itself trumps anything else that this Story Smith has ever done in his entire life.
Okay.
This Story Smith would be, perfectly content to be holed up drinking ale and writing stories, where Felix, a human, one who is supposed to be lowlier than dwarves, gave up his family to come and be there at the end.
All right. Okay. Any more notes? All right. He slew a chaos dragon, Storysmith. Have you ever done that? He followed me to the darkest places of the old world, all the way to the chaos wastes and back, all on the strength of his word alone. 20 years we traveled the world before I released him from his oath so that he might go home and be wed, and even then he managed to be there beside me at the very end. You, Storysmith, aren't yet worthy to speak his name.
Yeah.
And that's the read I was looking for. Perfectly delivered. Perfectly delivered.
Definitely.
Yeah.
This deserves a golf club.
Yes. Beautiful.
All right.
Okay.
Well, let's go ahead and move it right along. Nathan, you are up.
We have about 9 minutes left, by the way.
Yeah, we're definitely going to go over time. So I apologize to everybody who's under a time constraint. If you cannot stick around, that's fine. But again, I established this rule before. If you weren't here for the cold reads, we cannot get around to you and your reads, but you are more than welcome to give us your feedback and input and read with us in the Discord server after the mic check.
In the dark mic check.
Anyway, Nathan, you are up.
Mere human. Mere human. He slew a chaos dragon, Storysmith. Have you ever done that? He followed me to the darkest places of the old world, all the way to the chaos wastes, and back, all on the strength of his word alone. 20 years we traveled the world before I released him from his oath, so that he might go home and be wed. And even then, he managed to be there beside me at the very end. You, Storysmith, aren't yet worthy to speak his name.
Okay, opening it up. What did you all think?
I like the rise and fall to it. It had a very natural feeling.
It had the emotional journey, so good with that. It did feel to me kind of the same as with Michael's, where there's too much drama and not enough, this is just a naturally intense guy.
Okay.
Yeah, I think for me, I was missing, maybe that was it, some intensity. I felt like something was missing. Like it was too quiet or something. I don't know.
Anything else?
I like the voice. Keep the voice.
Okay, so keep the voice. But yeah, be less dramatic and more just naturally intense. These things are important to you. They matter to you. So make them matter to you.
Mere human. He slew a chaos dragon, Storysmith. Have you ever done that? He followed me to the darkest places of the old world, all the way to the chaos waste and back, all on the strength of his word alone. 20 years we traveled the world before I released him from his oath, so that he might go home and be wed. And even then, he managed to be there beside me at the very end. You, Storysmith, aren't yet worthy to speak his name.
Okay, opening it up. What did you all think?
I'm trying to figure out how to put words to it. And any of the other habitual gamers in the group might be able to get this. It feels it feels almost like some audio that would already be in an MMO, like an MMO game.
A little Final Fantasy 14 in there, huh?
You know, that was the exact game I was thinking of when I said that.
I play Final Fantasy 14.
Called out.
Yeah. And I want to make sure that that's implicated as like a truly neutral comment. It's acceptable. It's there. It has rises, it has falls, but it feels almost backgroundy, and yet you're kind of the center of attention here. Like you're kind of saying, listen, jackass, you're saying something about somebody really near and dear to me, but it was feeling like my daughter has run away from the briar patch for the 14th time this month.
with the slow background music.
Okay. Okay. Leave out the epic NPC guy. Okay, I got it.
It's not bad by any stretch. It just almost feels watered down.
Okay.
Felix, a mere human. He slew a chaos dragon, Storysmith. Have you ever done that? He followed me to the darkest places of the old world, all the way to the chaos waste and back, all on the strength of his word alone. 20 years we traveled the world before I released him from his oath, so that he might go home and be wed. And even then, he managed to be there beside me at the very end. You, Storysmith, aren't yet worthy to speak his name.
All right, what did you all think? Still had that Final Fantasy 14 in it?
Definitely less so on that one.
Cool. I can hop on my chocobo and go home.
Less so,
safe
but
ride home.
less so, but it does feel more like talking to NPC about background story and less cutscene.
Okay.
Like main cinematic cutscene is what I feel like this is. And the sort of quiet read sounds like I walked up to this dwarf in his hut and he's telling me the tale about this, this one thing that happened. So it didn't feel like there was that like real true importance and gravitas to it for me.
That's what it is.
Okay, yeah, I'm leaning a little bit more into the microphone and doing that up close and personal thing. So I'll just change it up a little bit. And I'm in the tavern.
Mere human! Mere human! He slew a chaos dragon, Storysmith. Have you ever done that? He followed me to the darkest places of the old world, all the way to the chaos waste and back, all on the strength of his word alone. 20 years we traveled the world before I released him from his oath so that he can go home and be wed. And even then, he managed to be there beside me to the very end. You, Storysmith, are not yet worthy to speak his name.
That's where I wanted it to go. Good job.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes,
that's a
sir.
special sauce.
Giving a lot more Gimli that time, but that's not a bad thing.
No, not a bad thing. Yeah,
I mean,
think
it's a
not,
good reference, so it's
Yeah,
fine.
no, it's good.
My
I think it's
nod
not
to John
necessarily-
Rhys Davies, whom I've met, by the way, and he gave me instructions on how to best do an impression of Peter Falk. So, hey, thank you, John.
Can I be
Shout out.
nitpicky for a quick
No problem.
second and say it felt a little shouty to me?
Yeah, I was kind of getting loud NPC.
I disagree.
I like it.
But
You can disagree,
yeah,
Mateo.
I didn't say. I mean, I didn't want to say anything. But see, the only thing is that you start off with gravitas because I'm assuming that killing a chaos dragon is kind of a big deal.
It is.
So you start off with this high gravitas moment. He slew a chaos dragon, Storysmith. Have you ever done that? It's an instant call to attention. It's an instant grab of somebody's, their sense of honor and of awe. So it's this. You start off really grabbing their attention, and then playing up the how incredible this guy is and what he did. So I got a little shouty. It was a little too fast for my taste, but
Okay.
if the majority likes it,
Yeah.
we'll call it good and we'll move it right along.
Also, since it was like slamming into 9 o'clock, I kind of did speed up my read. This is not an apology. This is just I sped it up because of time. it's 9 o'clock. So
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Time
I'm
is
the
no
host.
object.
I've got the
You can
host,
go
so
whenever.
I mean, if you need to go, that's totally fine. If anybody needs to go, don't worry about it. I understand life happens. But yeah, let's go ahead and move it right along here with Brett.
No camera fix today. Sorry, guys.
You win some, you lose some.
Yeah.
And no apologies.
Hey, that's for a camera, not performance.
Still stands.
Well, okay, it's the camera's performance. All right. Oi, he slew a chaos dragon, Story Smith. Have you ever done that? He followed me to the darkest places of the old world, all the way to the chaos waste and back, all on the strength of his word alone. 20 years we traveled the world before I released him from his oath so that he could go home and be wed. And even then, he managed to be there beside me at the very end. You, Story Smith, aren't yet worthy to speak his name.
All right, opening it up. What
I
did you
hear
all
some
think?
distinct Australian.
I was getting human rogue and not dwarven berserker.
I felt like when you said the part where he was going the part where he was going give me a second. The beside me at the very end, I'm getting more anger than reverence.
Okay. Do you want less anger?
Less anger, yeah, because that's a line that is important to him, I believe.
I'd like to hear a read without the accent. I was kind of pulled in a few different directions trying to follow it. So I'd like to hear it just in your natural voice.
Okay.
I second that.
Thirded.
All right, so let's hear a accentless read, and then we'll go from there. Whenever you're ready, Brett.
Okay. He slew a chaos dragon, Story Smith. Have you ever done that? He followed me to the darkest places of the old world, all the way to the chaos waste and back, all on the strength of his word alone. 20 years we traveled the world before I released him from his oath so that he might go home and be wed. And even then, he managed to be there beside me at the very end. You, Story Smith, aren't yet worthy to speak his name.
You know, the thing is that read was more subtle than a lot of the other ones that we got, but it still had a really good emotional space to it. That accent was really throwing off your emotional journey for this character, because I really heard what you were going for this time around versus the last time.
Yeah, it did much better accentless.
There
I
should have
agree.
been. I agree, but also there should have been more emphasis on the to be wed part.
I may have overdone my critique with the line that I told you with the how you put the anger into it, because I feel like you backed off of it too much, made it more of just a statement of the facts rather than putting the emotional reverence into it.
Yeah, I was getting scholarly wizard in this read, and definitely not dwarven
Yeah.
berserker.
I agree with Leonard. It sounds like you're calmly explaining to him what he just did and what is he talking about.
Yes, so the emotional space that you're in with this is, this guy's wrong. He's absolutely wrong about this. He doesn't know. He hasn't seen any of this, and he still wants to talk down to Felix. This is not right. It's that kind of correction that you'll want to give. It's that feel, that emotional space that we're going for.
I know. I'd be inclined to start it off he slew a chaos dragon story, Smith, like you're banging your fist into the bar table.
Oh my god, that was just exactly the image I've been trying to get. Okay. No preview.
All right, Brett, whenever you're ready, go for it.
I just have one thing to say real quick. Brett,
Okay.
are you a visual person? Can you visualize things in your head or in front of your eyes? Okay, visualize it. Put yourself in the headspace of the character and visualize. Really put yourself in the world that you can see.
Okay.
If you haven't, of course.
All right. Hey, he slew a chaos dragon, Story Smith. Have you ever done that? He followed me to the darkest places of the old world, all the way to the chaos waste and back, all on the strength of his word alone. 20 years we traveled the world before I released him from his oath so that he might go home and be wed. And even then, he managed to be there beside me at the very end. You, Story Smith? You, Story Smith, aren't yet worthy to speak his name. My screen blacked out on my tablet.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, barring that, what did everybody think?
I think that it started off better, then it died down. Then the fact that it died down was fine on and even then he managed to be there because that is supposed to be more to be delivered with more reference and less anger, I guess. And then again, it was a little bit too on the softer flat side on the last one. But I think you started off better this time, definitely.
Yeah, more banging on the bar table because the start was good.
Mm-hmm.
So a couple of places that you can use to lift your emotion back up is at the start of the third sentence, or actually in the middle of the third sentence, where it says "and back." That's a big point. You should emphasize that. Bring the emotion up a little bit. He followed me to the darkest places of the old world, all the way to the chaos wastes and back. You know, you're really playing up that story. You're really playing up his heroism and following you there and in surviving the journey all the way back.
Got it.
So you can use that as like a natural moment to like lift the emotion back up there. And then 20 years.
20 years if you want to, yeah.
Yeah, 20 years can be one of those places. But go home and be wed needs to be an emphasized point a little bit because it contrasts with, and even then he managed to be there beside me at the very end. So those are a couple of natural places that you can like raise the emotion back up a little bit. So and back and go home and be wed.
Okay.
So give us one more read, give those some lifts.
Okay.
I think that'll really help you. You're starting off strong. We just want to carry that the rest of the way through. That's all.
Okie dokie. Hey, he slew a chaos dragon, Story Smith. Have you ever done that? He followed me to the darkest places of the old world, all the way to the chaos waste and back, all on the strength of his word alone. 20 years we traveled the world before I released him from his oath so that he might go home and be wed. And even then, he managed to be there beside me at the very end. You, Story Smith, aren't yet worthy to speak his name.
Buenísimo.
Hey,
you're welcome, Mateo. You're welcome.
I know this breaks the rules. I just
Jesus
visualize the scene
Christ.
differently. than
Hey, you know
guys
what?
do.
Visualizing the scene differently makes a big difference. You can talk about stuff that you have like done to help change the read. Just do not critique your own read.
Yeah.
That's the main
Okay.
thing.
Yeah, I wasn't. Yeah, I think I just did it visually differently than what
And-
everybody is suggesting.
Yeah, just like with Orbit, even just that makes such a huge difference, and it really made a difference.
Got it.
So to be honest, I think he's suffering from the fact that he didn't get all the context that we talked about in the beginning of the mic check. So there's also
Yeah, I
that
didn't
to take
because
into
the camera.
Yeah,
situation I was
yeah,
trying to
that's
fix.
unfortunate. But
So-
still, though, you still made it there. That's the
Yeah.
thing. You still made it there.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah, I was going for Billy Butcher in the beginning.
Oh,
The cock-
yes!
But I know
Oh.
I'm a
Brilliant.
tenor, and I'm pretty sure Carl Urban is like at least a baritone, if not a bass.
yeah.
So yeah, that's probably why the accent wasn't tracking.
Well, the thing is again, the tricky thing about an accent is that if you're not a native speaker, or if you're not like close to a native speaker, then it takes a lot more brain power than you usually expect it to.
A lot of brain power.
And that's the main thing.
I want to tell you, it took years to get the British accent where I've got it. I mean, years. I mean, so I'm just talking about starting back maybe the 5th grade. I'm 52 years old. I started playing with this British accent when I was 11. So,
Have you- I don't
yeah.
want to get off topic, but you took accent training? I'm assuming?
No,
No? Oh, okay.
no. I watched a lot of British television,
Okay.
especially Doctor Who. I'm a huge Doctor Who fan. So.
I was gonna say, Doctor Who comes up a
That
lot.
Monty Python, okay, Monty Python, and I
voice
like to
is like
listen to
the
the
first
Beatles.
layer,
So there's
right?
my British training right there: the Beatles, Doctor Who, and Monty Python.
Sorry, Barry, what was that?
Oh, I just feel like, like the voice is like the first training. I think sometimes it's like, if you don't say after or something like that, or like those are so grating if you like hear them and it's like, oh, he didn't say that, or he messed that up, or like, or it's like whatever, like the famous Don Cheadle in Oceans has like a terrible Cockney accent because every little like slight mispronunciation is so grating. So it's like,
oh,
that to
this
me
guy-
is like the more I can research any amount of words to.
Yeah, don't
Right.
watch the original Mary Poppins.
Right.
you got the
Right.
reference.
Right.
I'll
All
give him
right.
this. At least he tried.
Well, I think, Brett, we got an absolutely fantastic read out of you. And again, we're a little bit over time, so let's go ahead and move it along. So, Emily, you are up.
Alrighty, my
You've got this.
turn. Okay. Make sure I can see the. There we go. He slew a chaos dragon, Storysmith. Have you ever done that? He followed me to the darkest places of the old world, all the way to the chaos waste and back. All on the strength of his word alone. 20 years. We traveled the world before I. 20 years we traveled the world before I released him from his oath so that he might go home and be wed. And even then, he managed to be there beside me at the very end. You, Storysmiths, aren't yet worthy to speak his name.
Okay, opening it up. Let's get some feedback.
To me, it felt really deliberate all the way through. And that's not quite how I see a Dwarven Berserker.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a little bit too drawn out in many places, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, when each word was delivered, it felt almost too theatrical, is the word I want to use.
Yeah.
It's a bit too dramatized.
Okay,
Very
so lower the drama.
yeah, lower the drama, lower the. Felt like there's a lot of very airy kind of voice. So then kind of just kind of tighten everything up together. Really feel the importance here. That's kind of what I got.
Okay.
Yeah, I like some of the kind of staccato readings here and there. Like because even in my head, I thought of the whole speak his name thing. Like that was what I was going to. I was like, oh shoot, she did it. Oh cool. But then I was like, oh, everything it just became like it almost became like a narrating sort of voice, like you were a DM and kind of in character or
Okay.
whatever. But yeah. So it's. Yeah, I think it might be
Voiceover,
obfuscating your emotions.
you cannot escape Dungeons and Dragons, it seems.
All right, so less drama-y.
More of just like, again, this is you're correcting somebody who's just they're so wrong about it. They have the worst outlook on them. Again, like the direction says, amongst other dwarves, humans are considered next to nothing. It's shoddy work. So you see that is absolutely wrong. This human was way more honorable than this dwarf ever would be.
Okay.
So it needs to have that same kind of belief in it, that intensity. He slew a chaos dragon, Storysmith. Have you ever done that? Instantly it's like this correction because, again, he's writing down that this human thing did a few things while our great dwarf was so much better. That's not the case. You're putting him in his place. So correct him.
Give us fiery.
Too fiery, you said?
No, give us fiery.
Oh, give us fiery. Okay. Okay, then. He slew a chaos dragon, Storysmith. Have you ever done that? He followed me to the darkest places of the old world, all the way to the chaos waste and back, all on the strength of his word alone. 20 years we traveled the world before I released him from his oath so that he might go home and be wed. And even then, he managed to be there beside me at the very end. You, Storysmith, aren't yet worthy to speak his name.
And that was it, in my opinion. I feel that was absolutely fantastic. What did you all think?
Yeah, I thought it was good too.
I think I personally think it was still very much theatrical.
Okay, so
Like too theatrical or just more theatrical?
As much as theatrical as it was before, basically.
Oh, okay. So there wasn't
As
any
in
change.
very, very deliberate. Yeah.
So either I was listening too hard or reading into things, but it almost sounded like you wanted to go a little bit harder on certain words and kind of pulled yourself back.
okay.
Like it stuck out the most to me where your delivery was something along the lines of, he followed me to the darkest places of the old world.
Oh
Like,
no,
it
that
sounded-
wasn't
back.
No, that wasn't me trying to pull back. That was me honestly forgetting what I was saying for a split second.
It happens. Other than that, other than like the occasional, it kind of sounded like you wanted to go harder in that emotional state and didn't. Other than that, I have no other notes.
Are you saying that I should go harder in those spots, or just that it was obvious that I was doing something?
I personally feel like there needs to be a little more to it. Like there's I can hear like shreds of emotion there, but it feels more background. This is always so nebulous to try to describe. From the context that I'm getting, his friend died pretty recently. Like these emotions aren't on the back burner. They are very much there, and honestly, like knowing that Storysmith is a Storysmith is probably all that's keeping his axe from the Storysmith's throat.
Okay.
for daring to say something bad about Felix.
I think what might be happening though is that she hears "don't be overly dramatic," and that becomes like this sort of limiting factor. And so you hear her being like, "Oh shoot, I shouldn't be doing that. Wait," and then it's kind of like she's getting her own way a little bit. But
Yeah, that's why I feel it's really important that instead of telling somebody not to do something, tell them to do something different instead. Put their focus elsewhere. So instead of focusing on not being overly dramatic, just remember that your character they're really intense. This is really personally meaningful to you. Like this is something that is so deep in you. You just finished this grand adventure, and now you're recounting the tale of your friend who you traveled the world with. You faced unimaginable beasts that nobody else that you're talking to has probably ever even seen in their lives. And now they want to write this person out as next to nothing, as dirt. Don't stand for it.
Okay. This
Imagine-
isn't me critiquing my performance, Michael. This is just me stating the facts. I'm trying to find that balance between angry and reverent, and I can't find it.
Okay, yeah, that's not that's not self-critique. You're totally fine to say that. Listen,
Emily, try and think about if somebody was to slight one of your friends in
Okay.
real life.
Okay.
yeah, that's good. And you don't need to try to like have something that's in the middle of anger and reverence. You need to just separate them.
Okay.
You can have anger at certain points here, and you can have reverence at certain points here. But trying to like blend the two of them together, you don't need to do that. That's okay.
I guess
this
that's what I
character's
meant was
naturally.
find the balance between them, not like blend them, but like find the balance between where they are.
So I think where they really stand is at the very beginning, the first two lines, and then the very last line.
Is the anger.
Yes, that's where the anger can be.
Okay. Okay. Cool.
That's what
Yeah.
we me and Leonard also talked about as in emotional journey, going through
Yeah.
different emotional state through different parts of the text.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get that like
You
in
got
my
this.
head.
You got this.
Okay.
Again, you can. So again, like this is somebody who's making fun of one of your friends at the very beginning, and you are being honest about the amazing things that they've done, and then reminding them of exactly what they did to you.
Okay.
Go for it.
Yeah, it feels like you're thinking in your head like, okay, well, he has anger, but he can't be too angry, and he has and he has reverence, but he can't be too reverent, and you're kind of holding back on all his emotions a bit. And this guy does not hold back on his emotions at all.
Okay.
So I go with the natural intensity on lines where he's supposed to be angry, and if he's supposed to be reverent, but make a choice and commit to it, and do whatever he's doing there.
Yes, there are parts where he can be 100% reverent, 100% angry, etc.
Okay.
And if you go between them, then you have all the more of an emotional journey, as long as he doesn't come across as multiple personality.
Or wishy-washy.
So anyway, have at it.
Okay. He slew a chaos dragon, Storysmith. Have you ever done that? He followed me to the darkest places of the old world, all the way to the chaos wastes and back, all on the strength of his word alone. 20 years we traveled the world before I released him from his oath so that he might go home and be wed. And even then, he managed to be there. And even then, he managed to be there beside me at the very end. You, Storysmith, aren't yet worthy to speak his name.
It was a little on the slower side. but the emotional intensity and the emotional journey was there. Having you
Okay.
speed it up would be more nitpicky than anything else, I feel, because
Okay.
for the most part, I think we got great emotional range out of you for this one.
From the
Okay.
first read, it was giant steps.
Yes, yes.
All right. Cool.
I think
Cool.
when you're reading, like you're to drag out the word is a way to make something happen, but I think you're overusing that.
Okay.
Dragging out a lot of those words, and it's just like you're overusing that technique. I think.
Okay.
And I
So I'm
think you have to
dragging
be
out too many
careful
of them. Oh, sorry, Barry. What were you saying?
Sorry. So now your intent and like the over dramatic, I think you got past that point, but now it's a matter of figuring out the flow of your sentence structures. Because right now you have these things where it's like, and even then, he managed to be there beside me at the very end, and it's like really dictating, and it gets to the point where it's like kind of distracting to because all they can hear is like the person trying to read that way, and it kind of makes them dissociate from the character.
Okay.
But I think like you're getting the dynamics properly. It's just a matter of
Mhm.
trying to vary your delivery.
Yeah, it just
the delivery is very forced right now. But
we will
you're
just
getting
need
there.
more attempts, but overall, it was a great improvement.
Okay.
Yeah, I wouldn't have you read it again, but it's still coming across as very deliberate with the way you're reading. So just something to be aware of and work on.
Okay. Cool. Cool. All right. Well, thank you all for the feedback.
All right, moving right along. Barry, you're up.
Barry.
He slew a chaos dragon, Storysmith. Have you ever done that? He followed me to the darkest places of the old world, all the way to the chaos wastes and back, all on the strength of his word alone. 20 years. We traveled the world before I released him from his oath, so that he might go home and be wed. And even then, he managed to be there beside me at the very end. You, Storysmith, aren't yet worthy to speak his name.
All right, opening it up. What did you all think?
I think you kind of were doing a little bit of what you told me I was doing.
You're holding back.
I'm holding back. Interesting. Okay.
You're holding back. Well, the thing is you start intense and then you just bring it all way, 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 way down throughout the rest of it. And it just kind of stays down throughout the remainder of it. There are, like I said, and like we went over, there are natural points where this can, rise up in its emotional state where you can make your points. Think of a drill sergeant with a knife hand, like right in your face, He followed me to the darkest places of the old world, all the way to the chaos wastes and back.
It's like in here, I know what to do. It's just like getting through the motions. Like I know exactly what to do. It's just like
then do it.
There's still that there's still that little stumbling path. So I just have to
just let it happen.
do
Let it come
Yeah.
out. Again, you need to be in the situation. You need to see who you're talking to and see the people around you. You need to see all these dwarves reacting in shock to you standing up for a human, something no dwarf has ever done before. You're proud of that. You adventured with him. You knew the strength of his character.
That's why I actually, and no one else necessarily do that, but I like the idea of the very first line being, because I don't know if I should say what I'm picturing. I don't know if that, because I feel like I want to try to
go for
get
it.
that. Oh, okay. I'll just try to go for it again and then see maybe.
Yeah, go for it. Go for it. Let's hear it.
Okay. He slew a chaos dragon, Storysmith. Have you ever done that? He followed me to the darkest places of the old world, all the way to the chaos wastes and back, all on the strength of his word alone. 20 years. We traveled the world before I released him from his oath, so he might go home and be wed. And even then, he managed to be there beside me at the very end. You, Story Smith, aren't yet worthy to speak his name.
Okay, opening it up.
I think it got a little too heartfelt in the middle there, and it kind of killed that last line as kind of more threatening.
It comes across to me like you're playing the character instead of being the character and then talking normally.
I've got something, but it's still kind of formulating. The rough draft version of my comment is it felt a bit domestic almost.
Domestic.
Like, the very first line, that he slew a chaos dragon.
Yeah.
But
Agreed.
after that, it felt very after like it started petering down after that. And by the time you got to he followed me to the darkest places. He followed me to the darkest places where we made sure to pick up milk and eggs and bread and also butter. And I almost forgot the tartar sauce.
Okay.
Like conceptually,
so
like
I think my problem is that I'm going for spikes.
You leave that to us. We'll tell you.
Okay. Well, yeah.
I Marcus, I think I know exactly what it is that you're talking about. I think I might, tell me if I'm wrong, all right? But you're losing your intensity far too quickly.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're starting off very strong.
Yeah.
You're starting off very, very strong, and then you're immediately dying down.
You
Let
can
it
have-
carry. So again, you're turning to this Story Smith on this second line. He slew a chaos dragon, Story Smith. Have you ever done that? Stare him down.
Right.
Let that
You
sink
could do
in.
that.
This is a
What-
human. You consider
so
him
what I
lower
was
than you.
trying to visualize, and I was trying to even in the first read do it, and maybe I'll try to do it again. I love the idea of like, this is so out of depth. He's like, I wanted this to be like the most explosive moment for him. It's like bubbling up, and then it all came out, and then it's almost like, but see, okay, let me just try to keep going because I know that I'm probably overthinking it, but I like the idea of this being like super explosive, and then he's like, I need to, I don't know, focus on that or something, or like he almost feels guilty.
You can deliver a line that's calmer and quieter because that's a way to like keep their attention.
Right.
But when you
right.
have 2, 3, 4 lines in a row that are calmer and quieter, then you turn into the dwarven accountant.
Yeah. I can see that.
As far as the clarity of the lines themselves, great for an audiobook, but and the thing is that there can be a quieter delivery that still has that intensity. There can be he followed me to the darkest places of the old world, all the way to the chaos wastes. I barely raised my voice, and it sounds like I want to scream.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
Don't lose your intensity. Whatever you do, don't lose your intensity. Go for it.
He slew a chaos dragon, Story Smith. Have you ever done that? He followed me to the darkest places of the old world, all the way to the chaos wastes and back, all on the strength of his word alone. 20 years we traveled the world before I released him from his oath, so he might go home and be wed. And even then, he managed to be there beside me at the very end. You, Story Smith, aren't yet worthy to speak his name.
Much better emotional journey this time around. You kept up the intensity much, much better. Little quick, but overall, much better intensity. Opening it up. What did y'all think?
I want gestures, big gestures. Use your body. I think that'll help you a lot.
Yeah, I don't know if you noticed, but as you were going along, like you can't really see it in my camera, but I'm like, with certain lines that, at least for me, I feel like would have more intensity behind them. Even if I'm not delivering the line, it just getting your body into the actual motions is going to feel a lot more like you're saying it or like you're in it.
Yeah, I'm really trying to not overact.
No, it really.
I feel like there's that line between.
It works. It works. I'm sorry, not to interrupt you, Marcus, but they're right. When you add your body, like you might look crazy, but it does give like a better delivery.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also there's a phrase that I picked up doing community theater. It is a lot easier to push in and pull
rein
out
someone back than give. Yep, I've heard that a million times. Yep.
Yeah. And of course we all giggled at it because but it's a lot easier to say, okay, you're doing a bit much. Yeah. Instead of trying to yank it out. Like go over, like don't wake anybody up. I don't know what time it is by you, but don't wake anybody up per se, but
yeah.
Or do. Why not? I mean, whatever. Surprise someone in the next room over.
I'd die on the spot if I tried. But especially after, have you ever done that? You have a good. I was about to use the buzzword. You have
be specific.
You had a good gravitas in the first part, and then it turns into a shopping list. You follow me to the dark places of the old world, all the way to the castle. So slower, and I think this script is a good teacher in applying gravitas and tension, where you don't laugh at me, when you can't go full overboard with it, because as we said, this guy is supposed to be angry and intense, but he can't be pushing the pedal 100% through all of it. Otherwise he probably had an heart attack. So slower,
yeah,
and give more, maybe take even especially after, have you ever done that? That's already a period, like a phrase with a concept that it's done. Then it goes into introducing another concept, another part of his arguments, I guess. It's like taking making a breath, maybe taking a breath and going on again, like with new energy.
Yeah, I guess I wasn't doing it because I was trying to like give the all the way and back and trying to get it back, but I guess it wasn't reading. So
why don't you give us 300% and then we'll dial you back?
Yeah.
Big gestures, big body language.
And also point.
Yeah.
Point things out. Use your body.
Okay.
And back.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Oh, can I go for it?
Of course, go for it. Yes.
Oh, okay. I was like, that was my third read.
We're here for you, Barry. Oh, we don't do number of reads, okay, Barry? You should know that by now. Nope, not going to say it.
Cool. He slew a Chaos Dragon, Storysmith. Have you ever done that? He followed me to the darkest places of the old world, all the way to the Chaos Wastes, and back, all on the strength of his word alone. 20 years we traveled the world before I released him from his oath so he might go home and be wed. And even then, he managed to be there beside me And even then, he managed to be there beside me at the very end. You, Storysmith, aren't yet worthy to speak his name.
Okay. What did you all think of that one?
I think one thing, Barry, it's and back, not and back. The and is not the operative word there. The back is.
Okay.
For sure. Yeah.
If the last, sorry, go ahead.
And your next line is 20 years we traveled the world before I released him on his oath so that he might. It's like everything is like the same pace when you're reading that line, and it sounds weird.
Yeah.
That's all I got.
Yeah, I was going to say if the last read was 100%, it felt like this was 105 rather than the 300. we kind of asked for, and I think a lot of people were waving their arms to maybe try and get you to start using your arms and use that body language. And I felt like and then he went home to be wed. The end. That's how that line kind of felt to me.
And they lived happy ever after.
Exactly. So this one felt a bit more bedtime story than some of the other reads. So yeah, maybe
I
try
love the slamming your fist in anger too. I like that too. I could try just that.
I think
I
that's
love that too, but
yeah, you try that.
Do it.
Just in the immortal
I just
words of
know
Shia
that
LaBeouf.
my setup will pick up on the
do
mic.
it.
Yeah. I understand.
Right now, it doesn't matter. We're looking for that emotional delivery. We're not looking for clean audio.
Okay, sure.
And let's give us something on darkest. He followed me to the darkest. You know, that's a word you can really show is dark by the way you say it.
Sure.
One more. And then we'll go ahead and move on because we are running way over time here.
Sure. He slew a chaos dragon, Storysmith. Have you ever done that? He followed me to the darkest places of the old world, all the way to the chaos wastes and...
Get your body into it. Move.
Okay.
Yeah, take it.
Yeah, because by the way, I am not able to, I guess what I should try to do is maybe
can you stand
minimize
up
the script so that not really.
Can you pull it up on your phone?
Yeah.
Or on a tablet, something
That's
separate.
not a bad idea. Let's try that. Sure.
I can tell you, Barry, if you don't get your body into it, you're not going to win any audition. That's just not going to happen. Even the people that lose the auditions are going to get their body into it.
Got it.
That's just the way it works.
Yeah.
While you're pulling that up, though, just like the body thing, even like with me getting started on mine, like I take my headphones off, just it helps me read it without sounding like I'm reading. But like I ran my hands through my hair and got a little agitated, and I've got, like I mentioned in the chat, I've got some personal stuff that I'm using to feed my emotion for this scene. So if that'll help you get further into the scene, use it. You know, if somebody really pissed you off recently, had you also, let me not, because we're still streaming on YouTube.
Yeah.
But it's okay.
like
it's over the first 10 minutes mark. You can say whatever you want to.
Oh, okay. Let me put it this way then. Somebody really pissed you off. Somebody had you fucked up in the worst possible way. Told you something completely negative about somebody that you really care about, and they had the nerve to say it like it's a piece of truth.
Yeah.
Voila.
Yeah.
And
I think I'm just gonna have to channel the frustration of not getting the fucking read right.
There you go.
Do it. Do it.
Yeah.
Do it.
Just fucking do it.
Yeah. I think the other problem I have is that I know that if I go all in, it's hard for me to control like my pacing and not start rushing and not start, because it's like I'd start to lose it. So it's
We're
like,
looking
Forget
for
about all that.
Yeah, just don't overthink it. Dive in with the emotions. Put yourself in the scene and see that happen.
And we'll pull.
And
you
if we
back
don't
you've
see
gone
your
too far.
hands moving, you're doing it wrong.
Yep,
I
exactly.
think he was critiquing himself, Michael, and I think you missed it.
Yeah, I actually.
Dan rule violation.
That's all right.
It's
Let's
more
just,
me
let's just
trying
let
to
him...
ask for help.
Don't
because I
break the
think it's a
coolio
notable
rolio.
thing.
Yeah, I think he knows what he's gotta do.
Okay.
He's gotta do it.
So here's the thing. Sometimes you just have to dive into it.
Okay.
Just don't overthink it. Don't try to get every single detail absolutely perfect. Again, it has been scientifically proven that when a person when a person focuses more on excellence versus perfection when trying to solve a problem, they are more creative in solving that problem. Perfection is going to be the quickest way to disappointment. So if you're trying to do something absolutely perfect, you're never going to do it you're never going to do it perfect. You're always going to find something that is not going to work right. It is It is constant. It is a law. It is unequivocal.
And if you're in this guy's head, he's not trying to do it perfect. He's just raw emotion going.
Right. So what you need to focus on is excellence. You need to focus on how can I really what is the best way for me to tell this person's story? How can I bring this person's emotion to life? How can I bring everybody into this scene I'm seeing? How do I show this scene I'm seeing? That's the most important part you need to go for. Don't worry about any of the smaller, tiny little details. Those are just going to screw you up, and they're going to kill any momentum that you have. Dive into it. Channel being pissed off at not getting the read right. Do whatever, but do it.
Don't forget to move your hands.
Yep. He slew a Chaos Dragon, Story Smith. Have you ever done that? He followed me to the darkest places of the old world, all the way to the Chaos Waste and back, all on the strength of his word alone. 20 years, we traveled the world before I released from his oath so he might go home and be wed. And even then, he managed to be there beside me at the very end. You, Story Smith, aren't yet worthy to speak his name.
Sorry.
Yeah, it was definitely an improvement.
Huge improvement.
I don't know what the fuck to do with my hands. If I can only think of
anything.
I don't know
You can do whatever. Okay.
Into it, going in, and
here's an
example.
example.
I don't know what to do
No,
with my
Matteo.
hands.
Here's an example. Have you ever done that?
Yeah, I can see that.
Okay.
Yeah, that it doesn't feel enough. Like I feel like I have to be like, I don't know, flailing my arms or something.
Then do it.
Yeah. But it doesn't feel natural.
Maybe
it gets me out of the scene. I don't know. It gets me out of it.
They got you into the scene.
Mary, I have the same
Gotta
problem.
get out of your comfort zone.
I don't emote much while I read, and I'm trying to correct that. So I feel
right,
you there.
It doesn't feel natural. That's probably what's.
I think it's kind of funny that we're trying to get an Italian to speak with his hands more.
I know.
Right, exactly. No, yeah. Well, because I think if I can visualize the characters doing these things, then it helps me to feel tethered to the character. But if it feels like what I'm doing isn't what I would be doing as a character, then it just feels like
it's not you.
I don't feel in sync with the character.
Well,
I don't feel like I'm
it
the
may
character.
have felt,
Yeah.
However it may have felt, that last read was miles ahead of everything you did before it.
definitely felt
So
it. I
keep
definitely felt
doing
it,
whatever it is you were doing there.
Yeah, I know Russ was trying to say something.
Just take Barry out of the equation. You're saying when I am the character, you are the character. There's no Barry involved. So whatever he would be doing, moving his hands the way he would do it, you're not Barry anymore. I think that's where you're kind of like a nice guy and all that, and you're trying to play a character that's not that way. So that's what you have to learn, really, I think, is just to forget about Barry and, and don't be embarrassed or whatever about what you do. Just freaking go for it. And then if it sucks, it sucks. But at least you tried your hardest and you didn't hold back.
Yeah.
Anyway, great read.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely like getting into the mindset.
avoided the
Like I
panic.
think a lot of times for me, it's more like I have to know that what I'm doing feels like I'm forward momentum.
Well,
because I think it's still sort of experimenting and figuring. So this was like good exercise because I feel like I'm learning what works for me. Like I'm figuring out what kind of works for me. So
Well, the thing is there's no rules.
Right.
There's no rules. I don't know if we kind of have this thing in our head that we have to do things absolutely right and we have to play by the rules in order to make it work. There are none.
Right.
Is having like a foam sword, like something that you can swing around while talking, going to help you? Get a foam sword.
Right.
Get a pool noodle. Use something. Do you need to just get loud occasionally? Then get loud. Like, yeah, you're going to piss somebody off, but at least you got the performance down right. It's all about there are no rules. There is no hard and fast set. You can, well, I mean, there are, but it's really, really wide. It's really, really loose. You can do this. You can't do this. Of course, don't smack the microphone. Okay. Don't do that. Don't beat on yourself because that's going to come out and it's not going to sound right. but other than screwing up the audio, your main goal is to think, how can I bring the scene I am in to life? What is happening around me? Who am I? You, Barry, are no longer you when you're in a character script specifically, or should I say a theatrical script specifically. You are whichever character you're playing. You need to be them, and whatever natural thing they're going to do while reading or while speaking. Sorry, not reading. While speaking.
So I think my verbiage is, because I think I'm just very visual with it, and so I'm just like, I need to figure out what the character would, what I would be doing if I were in those shoes, you know. And so I think it's just a matter of trying to feel like, okay, this feels like I feel in character, you know. Like right now.
Well, figure that out.
So
Maybe you need to take a little bit extra time to figure what that is. That's okay. But no, this is good. This is good. Like, you need to move. That's the most important part. We're going to go ahead and move along to Russ. Russ, you are up. And then after that is Sam. And then we're done with the mic check. We can finish, or we can continue hanging out over on the Discord.
Yay. Okay.
He slew a chaos dragon, Storysmith. Have you ever done that? He followed me to the darkest places of the old world, all the way to the chaos wastes and back, all on the strength of his word alone. 20 years we traveled the world before I released him from his oath so that he might go home and be wed. And even then, he managed to be there beside me at the very end. You, Storysmith, aren't yet worthy to speak his name.
Okay, opening it up. What did you all think?
I'm having trouble telling. Are you trying to use an accent / dialect for this character?
I know, a little creeped in. I'm sorry. No, that's right. You're right. I wasn't committed either way. Sorry. Yep. That's right.
Dan rule violation.
Sorry, not sorry.
Dan rule and Nephilim rule violation. Wow, both the Coolio Rulios. Man,
unbelievable.
I know. I'm an overachiever.
Definitely try to keep it in your natural voice and your natural dialect, just to find the emotional journey.
Yeah, it's really close. It is definitely there. The thing is it goes a little bit more theatrical than intense. Like, we want somebody who's fully committed to defending their friend, not someone who's playing to a crowd.
Okay.
I think it might be a matter of also practicing the voice, because I think while you're in the voice, you're doing that thing where it's hard for you to move outside of your comfort zone in that voice. So
the problem is I practice it two different ways.
Yeah.
I just want another read.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's go.
Yep, keep going.
He slew a chaos dragon, Storysmith. Have you ever done that? He followed me to the darkest places of the old world, all the way to Chaos Waste and back, all on the strength of his word alone. 20 years we traveled the world before I released him from his oath so that he might go home and be wed. And even then, he managed to be there by my side at the very end. You, Storysmith, aren't yet worthy to speak his name.
And how was that?
That felt like you were a little bit more comfortable in it. I do like the punch of the last line, though.
I love the worthy, and then I feel like the flow got a little bit messed up, and then it took me out. But I think you're really getting there.
I feel it was a little too punchy. There was a lot of this, but also I think you messed up in he managed to be there beside me. You said by my side. Maybe. Or maybe I only heard that.
I think I heard
It could be. I've had coaches tell me that's a good thing.
As long as it sounds natural, sometimes people are really okay with that. Again, I would say that with something like this, since this is very, very character oriented, you could get away with that.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it was a little punchy and choppy in certain places.
My biggest issue with it is that you seem to have pretty much the same delivery throughout. And there you can go like,
yeah, that too.
Have you ever done that? He followed me to the darkest places of the old world, all the way to, and you can vary it up.
Mm-hmm.
And not necessarily with that particular line, but just somewhere.
Agreed.
Thanks, Leonard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, let the all on the strength of his word alone be a climax of sorts in your personal involvement with this character. So build up to that. Give us another read.
He slew a chaos dragon, Story Smith. Have you ever done that? He followed me to the darkest places of the old world, all the way to Chaos Waste and back, all on the strength of his word alone. 20 years we traveled the world before I released him from his oath so that he might go home and be wed. And even then, he managed to be there beside me at the very end. You, Story Smith, aren't yet worthy to speak his name.
Okay, what did everybody think?
I'd kind of like 3 takes of just the last line, the "you, Story Smith," and try to make them very different.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think my problem was there was almost a nagging tone to it. It was almost like speak his name or like I don't know. It was weird. I don't know. And then I was like, how? I wasn't hearing that before. I'm like, what quality did that? Maybe you added some nasally quality to your voice, but I don't know.
That does happen to me sometimes.
Strange.
The voice does sound kind of constricted, but I wouldn't worry about that too much.
Yeah, let's just get an ABC take of you, Story Smith, aren't yet worthy to speak his name.
You, Story Smith, aren't yet worthy to speak his name. You, Story Smith, aren't yet worthy to speak his name. You, Story Smith, aren't yet worthy to speak his name.
Okay, feedback.
Oh,
this might sound a teeny bit,
Oh.
Blunt. It sounded like the same delivery with very slightly varying volumes.
Yeah, I think the problem is that, or a potential problem is that you keep leading it with "you, Story Smith," like every time it's that,
Yep.
and then as a result, it's kind of what Michael was saying, where your start is like informing the rest of your read, and then it's yeah, and that's something that you're gonna have to figure out. How can you vary up the beginning?
Yeah, the Story Smith word is coming through with like so much condescension that it just comes across as really overacted. I'd like one read of it where you're like almost walking away at the end of it, like you, Story Smith, aren't yet worthy to speak his name.
Well, if you break that down into just the most absolute key words in that whole sentence there, it's "you aren't worthy." So those are more the emphasis points. You, Story Smith, aren't worthy to speak his name. So give "you aren't worthy." I skipped "yet," but still. more of the particular emphasis there. You, Story Smith, aren't yet worthy to speak his name.
Okay.
And I think it might actually help you. Maybe you could put even a little gap between the you. It's
Okay.
like you, Story Smith, or whatever. Like you can mess around with that, and then maybe I think the way that you flow into it, it kind of starts making the rest of the read. It becomes kind of like autopilot. I think I'm just trying to make you.
Okay.
And point at the camera, point at me, point at something. Go for it.
You, Story Smith, aren't yet worthy to speak his name.
I don't think I did it quite like Leonard wanted.
Yeah.
Huh?
Dan rule violation.
Yeah.
It wasn't quite how I did it, but it was different and it worked.
Okay.
I think this was better. Just try. It's one of those things where you don't know quite what you want until you hear it, and then it'll be like, oh, that's exactly what I wanted. But it feels closer. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways that you could take this particular line, and I kind of think that just to completely vary it up, have the whole right up in the person's face read. You, Story Smith, aren't yet worthy to speak his name. Like get right in this person's face, and really, really hammer it home that they cannot stand up to you or to this person's legacy. Period.
Yeah, it's almost an air of resignation, like it's just hopeless. You'll never measure up to him.
Go for it.
All right.
You, Story Smith, aren't yet worthy to speak his name.
Yes.
Yeah. They'll see.
Yes.
Okay.
That was good.
Cool. Well, then I learned something.
Go ahead, Barry. What were you going to say?
I think what helped this time was that before you were kind of like your experimentation was kind of getting you in trouble, because before you were doing things like you are not worthy to speak his name, and it would just be like this very kind of avant-garde thing, which I think this was helping you, because now you're having it sounds like a more natural flow, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's go ahead and move it right along then, shall we?
Sure.
Sam, you're up.
All right, can you hear me?
Absolutely.
All right, perfect.
He slew a Chaos Dragon, Story Smith. Have you ever done that? He followed me to the darkest places of the old world, all the way down to the Chaos Wastes and back, all on the strength of his word alone. 20 years we traveled the world before I released him from his oath so that he might go home and be wed. And even then, he managed to be there beside me at the very end. You, Story Smith, aren't yet worthy to speak his name.
You're losing your intensity way too quickly.
Yeah.
You start off strong, but your intensity is gone by he followed me to the darkest places of the old world. So
Gotcha.
Something you could try, give yourself a pause after that first question. He slew a Chaos Dragon, Story Smith. Have you ever done that? And let the gravity of that sink in to who you're talking to. He followed me to the darkest places of the old world, all the way to the Chaos Wastes and back, all on the strength of his word alone. Build up the incredible honor and feats of your friend.
All right.
One place where you can really help lift up the intensity again is go on the 20 years we traveled the world.
Yeah, when I was
And maybe not even
practicing,
just
I
that,
actually
but like, give it the hammer fist for both of us. 20 years we traveled the world.
That's a long ass time.
Yeah, it's funny because when I was practicing it, that was actually what I was doing.
All
right.
Do it again.
Where did it go?
All right. He slew a Chaos Dragon, Story Smith. Have you ever done that? He followed me to the darkest places of the old world, all the way to the Chaos Wastes and back, all on the strength of his words alone. 20 years we traveled the world before I released him from his oath so that he might go home and be wed. And even then, he managed to be there beside me at the very end. You, Story Smith, aren't yet worthy to speak his name.
Again, your beginning and end is good, but the stuff in the middle, it drops all of that intensity.
I will say, just as a counter to that, the intensity of that, the second read versus the first read, it has gone up. It is more intense. It's less shopping list, more agitated, but that intensity is still kind of flat. So try to find some words in the copy that you can punch up a little bit. You know, we discussed the 20 years. I'm 31. That's more than 2/3. That's almost 2/3 of my entire life. That's a long ass time.
Right.
That somebody traveled the world with somebody. And then he left to go do something super important to him. He left to go get married, damn it. And then he came back to die by my fucking side, damn it.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, you raise the flat line, but it's still a flat line.
Yeah. My biggest quibble on that one is it doesn't sound to me like you're talking to the story smith. It sounds like you're holding a speech.
Yeah.
So I mean, watch the story smith, see how he reacts to what you're saying, and then play off of how he's reacting.
So from the Discord, we also got some feedback saying that, you know, your character's words are a promise. They're not just a story. It has weight, it has gravitas, it has meaning, and it has clear intention and purpose. So let's hear that.
He slew a Chaos Dragon, Story Smith. Have you ever done that? He followed me to the darkest places of the old world, all the way to the Chaos Wastes and back, all on the strength of his word alone. 20 years we traveled the world before I released him from his oath so he might go home and be wed. And even then, he managed to be there beside me at the very end. You, Story Smith, aren't yet worthy to speak his name.
There you go. There you go.
Small golf club.
I'm still hearing the he's up on a podium.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. I think you should get close to the microphone and give us some intensity, like you're seeing.
Actually, that's a very good direction. Yeah.
Eye to
First,
eye, like your eye is
okay.
Right up with him. Grab his collar.
I'm feeling. I'm feeling like
if you
you're
went closer to like Marcus's suggestions or reads of like the quiet intensity, especially at like the followed me to the darkest places, like I think that would be a nice contrast. Because right now it does sound like you like the way you're projecting is making it sound like you're like giving a speech. So.
Yeah, it sounds like you're trying to be intense, but the only way you know how to be intense is to get shouty. Try finding other ways of showing intensity. You can be intense and quiet.
Give us a Denzel Washington intensity. I'm kidding. I am kidding. I'm kidding. Don't take that actually seriously.
Let him practice a read of the second line, something like that. But.
Okay, let me try again. He slew a Chaos Dragon, Story Smith. Have you ever done that? He followed me to the darkest places of the old world, all the way to the Chaos Wastes and back, all on the strength of his word alone. 20 years we traveled the world before I released him from his oath so that he might go home and be wed.
All right, I'm going to stop you right there. You're starting to do the same things. So let's back it up. He followed me to the darkest places of the old world, all the way to the Chaos Wastes and back. Don't let your energy drop on and back. That is so key.
Right.
All the way to the Chaos Wastes and back, all on the strength of his word alone.
Right. I think where I went wrong is this is my editing. I removed
Wait
the
a
comma
minute.
where it said and back. That's what I did.
Okay. You put that comma right back there, young man.
Okay.
Where it belongs.
Yeah, I would write "and" in bold or whatever giant letters, and then all potentially in giant letters.
Oh no, I think
Tell
and
you.
back just needs an underline.
Yeah, just to make sure you know what to hit or whatever.
Yeah. So we're starting from he followed me.
I still want to hear some line in there where you show real intensity without getting shouty.
We'll get there. But we're going to do line reads right now because I kind of feel like we have to specifically for this section. So just from he followed me to his word alone. Just that section right there.
Okay. He followed me to the darkest places of the old world, all the way to the Chaos Waste and back, all on the strength of his word alone.
No. Do not drop your energy right there. Do not drop that same intensity that you had. All on the strength of his word alone. No. All on the strength of his word alone.
Gotcha.
Use your body. Point it out. Go for it.
He followed me to the darkest places of the old world, all the way to the Chaos Waste and back, all on the strength of his word alone. 20 years we traveled the world before I released him from his oath so that he might go home and be wed. And even then, he managed to be there beside me at the very end. You, Story Smith, aren't yet worthy to speak his name.
So let's change up the last line. We'll do the whole in your face read again. Get right up into his face. You, Story Smith, aren't yet worthy to speak his name.
Should I do it with like a teeth clench kind of?
Yeah. Do you really have to ask?
Sometimes.
No, don't ask. Just do. Forgiveness versus permission.
I kind of have a question because, like, I feel like Leonard's critique or like suggestion and then Michael's are kind of going against us because every time I heard him saying like alone, I was thinking, is that quiet intensity or is it not? Because it felt like it was like, oh, you lowered your volume, so that lowered the intensity, but like, isn't the point that you don't have to be loud all the time to, or is it like he can try to approach it differently if he wants to try to go quiet? There's a different approach to it to try to make that. Okay.
So the thing is the way that Sam's doing it right now is his energy is up, and he needs to carry that through. Because if you start with your energy up and then drop all the way down, you sound like you're talking to nobody. It's the difference between, he followed me to the darkest places of the old world, all the way to the Chaos Wastes and back, all in the strength of his word alone. Does that sound like quiet intensity?
Right, but I kind of want to hear it. I kind of want to hear a read because every time you've given a read where it was the same volume all throughout, and I kind of want to read a version that can get quieter and see how that sounds different.
Okay, well, we can go ahead and do that in the Discord after this.
Yeah, that's fine.
But Sam, go ahead, do that last line where you've grabbed the Story Smith by his collar and pulled him right into your face, and you are dead serious about this.
Okay.
Give us 3 reads of that, just the best that you can. We're not looking for too much variance necessarily, but we want you to feel the scene. Grab this guy by the collar, pull him into like right in front of you, and be super serious about it.
You, Story Smith, aren't yet worthy to speak his name. You, Story Smith, aren't yet worthy to speak his name.
Quieter on this one.
You, Story Smith, aren't yet worthy to speak his name.
That's quiet intensity.
So
And that was
do
it.
that with a tremble.
Very
when I'm being
nice.
Quiet? Like I'm shaking kind of while I'm doing it, because that's what I
Yeah.
felt when I was doing it.
Yeah, it worked. It worked. He sounded good. I don't know. I'm just doing stuff now. It's, but yeah, no. Again. I hope that you did use your body with this whole thing, and I hope that you got yourself into it, because
I
that
walked up
was.
to-
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No,
I
go
said I
ahead.
literally walked into my mic to do it.
There you go. There you go. Use your body. Use the space that you have. It's only going to help your reads.
Okay.
So we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. I'm going to go ahead and end the stream, and we will go into the Discord. So for those of you who've watched us on YouTube or who are watching us now, thanks. But join us. All the stuff is down below. You know what to do. So we'll see you next.